Does anyone hear me? If you can, I can't hear you. I have no sound. What's happening? And if anyone can hear me, I'm sorry, but I have no sound. This could be a StreamYard's glitch. I don't know. But I have no way of knowing if I'm being heard, or not. Let me try it again. No. I don't understand what's happening. But I can't hear anything. Last night. About now. I don't understand what's happening. Kurt's computer screwed up. Hello? Anyone hear me now? About now. About now. I don't understand what's happening. Kurt's computer screwed up. Hello? Anyone hear me now? Okay, well, I guess we're up and running. I'm gonna try a sound thing again and see what happens. No, man, we're not up and running. I don't know. Every time I plug in my sound thing, you know what, everyone? I'm gonna have to reboot my computer. If you guys, I can't hear anything. I'm gonna reboot my computer, see if that helps. I'm so sorry. It may not. So sorry, everyone. I'll stay around and see what happens. No, man, we're not up and running. I don't know. Every time I plug in my Could be messed up. I have no idea. Let's see. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's messed up. Oh, now it seems to work. I guess now it seems to be working. This is an old mic. I'm an old mic. Oh man. Now, I think we're up and running. I mean, if anybody is still here, I would appreciate if you would let me know, because I am pissed about all this technical garbage crap happening. I have a horrible mic and a headset. Apparently, I'm a horrible mic, but that's different. Yeah, you plan something and this kind of crap happens. Isn't that sweet? But I hope I am being heard by whoever's ever here, whoever is. Okay. Well, I think I am being heard now. So, Jesus, this sucks. Now I need to put the word back out that I'm on live. Everyone, so if you just be patient with me, I'm going to get started. My guest for the evening will be late. And it was kind of dependent upon him, so maybe I'll just do a little open talk, mess around a little bit, and then when he shows up, start handling it. I guess it's the only thing I can think of, really. Again, if anyone's even here yet, so we won't get started on the topic just yet, per se. Again, let me see if I can try to get the word out there a little bit that we're on live. I know it's Saturday night and it's all right for a fight, but is anyone else listening to geek stuff tonight anyway? Well, I mean, there are a lot of people streaming, I'm sure. Let's see. On live now. Big deal. It's a fight. A big deal. But I do apologize for all those technical problems. For anyone who did stick around, I appreciate that. I'm trying to put the word out there a little bit, because I looked like I wasn't going to be able to do this tonight. All of a sudden, because he kind of he's going to be late, but we're going to persevere here, I guess. Let's see. Steve Mitchum, what's up, buddy? Eastland Burkholder, thank you for being here. The great Charles McCreth, my old buddy, thank you. Canadian Spider-Man does whatever any Spider-Man can, Canadian or otherwise. And I thank you for being here, sir. And anyone else who popped in earlier. Again, sorry for all the technical problems I had. They were my own fault, I'm sure. Got me kind of out of my game. I already had enough problems going in with different things happening. And without Carlos being here, he might not show up until 9. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll just talk. I was going to talk about the works of Alan Moore. I'm just pumped up, but I feel really off my game now, and with all the things I had planned, because it just won't work without him here, the way I have it set up. And I don't know. This might just be an open show. Maybe I'm false advertising, because I just don't know if I feel like going into the topic. I may just cut the thing short after a little while and. Planning. I've already pushed the show back a couple of times anyway. What's one more, really? Hi, Eastland. I appreciate that. I'll talk a little bit about more, I guess. Again, but I had so many different things planned and set up for with Carlos to be here, and he doesn't tell me till like the last minute that I'm gonna hurt him. I'm gonna hurt him. Now things happen. What are you gonna do? But then all the technical crap started happening. Oh, Steve Mitchum, he will not be forgotten, sir. If you'll pardon the pun, hear ya, brother. Be talking about a lot of that stuff, but yes, that's one thing we'll be talking about quite a bit, actually. Alan Moore's early work. The way this had originally planned to go, I had originally planned this to go, was to just kind of start from scratch, just start from the beginning. Alan Moore, of course, has been in the news a bit lately. Well, in the geek news anyway, not real news. He's not relevant or anything in the real world. The old conjurer. But he likes to poke his little nose into the pop culture media every now and then. I suppose, especially when he has a project out there, or when he's just feeling, ornery and wants to trash people for liking superheroes and putting them in movies. Because if you ask Alan Moore, if you like, superheroes of any kind and you're above the age of 12 and you like to watch movies with the MCU or anything like that, you're a bad person. You're a jerk, and they're horrible for society and all that kind of crap. And he loves shooting his mouth off about that kind of stuff, and he also loves dunking on his old work. He loves dumping on it. He doesn't like it, or he trashes it. And look, it's his work. If he wants to do that, fine. What are you gonna do? He can do what he wants. And those are his opinions. I don't agree with him, but that's where we are. But that's he can do whatever the hell he wants. But needless to say, I and many others who've read comics for many years disagree with him. Not everyone. There are serious ramifications for a lot of the things he wrote, and he knew that. Before I think he went completely off his nut, I think he kind of knew that. Alan Moore did. Because, look, I'm a big Watchmen fanatic, a big Watchmen collector. I collected everything to do with it back when it came out. I love the book. Still love it as a masterpiece of storytelling and especially graphic storytelling by both he and Dave Gibbons. And I just love, I loved it and still love it to this day. But I've evolved and changed on it as well. Just as early on where he thought it was, he said, he thought maybe it was not the best idea because let's face it, it was not a good idea to do Watchmen. And you're going to go, wait a minute, I thought you said you loved it. I do love it. Two things can be true at the same time. Something can be really good, but not necessarily good for you. Deconstructing superheroes and the superhero myth or the idiom, which is what he did a lot. Sorry for the beep, the annoying beep. Okay, well, I'll be having Carlos join me sooner or later. Carlos will join. We're going to get started with the show. We'll have just started a bit late. Going to send him a link. I'm sorry, everyone. Let me get that jag off in here as soon as I press the right button. Sorry, that's a. All right. Sorry, everyone, having some still more different technical difficulty, but a little bit. As soon as I get him in here, we'll get started. If he is going to be in here anytime soon, because I've got to be able to send him a link, and it's not letting me. Let's see. Sending a link. It's totally disorganized. I want to just dump it at this point, but I can't. Why is this doing this? Why, Facebook, you piece of filth? Yeah, Facebook's not letting me send him a link, and I think that's how we keep in contact, is on Assbook. So, hang on, everyone. Let's see if I can get this thing. All right. All right. Well, okay. Sorry, everyone. It's a mess. And this time it wasn't StreamYards. It wasn't Black Adder. It was Blog Talk Radio or Anything like that? Well, Eastland, yeah, deconstructing. I mean, you can do a great story with it, as he has proven many. He proved it many times. But the problem is, we all know that people like to jump on bandwagons, and you can do something really good, and someone wants to come along and copy you, but doesn't do it anywhere close to as well or anywhere in the same caliber. And unless you're doing it like Moore did it, because with Watchmen at least, he had a lot of intelligence about it, and he was telling he wasn't doing it just to trash superheroes. There was a comic that came out around the same time that both Carlos and I were fans of called Martial Law. And that book was mean. I mean, we laughed at it because it was funny, but the idiots doing that book hated superhero, hated them, not enjoyed them when they were a kid, and kind of just deconstructing the myth to be constructive or to be interesting even, or to be artistic even. They just hated superheroes. And we were young and we thought it was funny. It was funny. Martial Law is a funny comic. It's a brutal comic. And it wasn't for kids, so it's not like it was being sold for kids or anything. But Martial Law was evil, the comic. And again, it's not like we were poking fun at superheroes or even deconstructing them with that book, like Kevin O'Neill by Pat Mills and Kevin O'Neill. They were trashing superheroes because they hated it. They hated them and they hated the genre. Like some other writers who came along later that followed sort of in the more mold, or at least try to be sort of like him, like a Garth Ennis or a Mark Millar, people like that. Some of those guys liked trashing superheroes and didn't really like superheroes that much, or the show. Warren Ellis and guys like that. Moore created all those guys. He didn't necessarily create some of his contemporaries, like even though Neil Gaiman and Morrison started coming in afterwards, but of course Morrison hates Moore, and I think Gaiman likes him and gets along with him. I don't know. Gaiman's an affable guy, gets along with other people, but I really don't know. But Moore's, in the 80s, Jobber, good to see you, man. Well, don't worry, we didn't get started yet because we had a lot of problems starting up. But in the 80s, Moore and Miller, Frank Miller and Alan Moore, started the trends that would pretty much last, well, to now in a sense, a lot of it. Good to see you, Jobber. Thanks, man. I'm glad to see you there, bud. But yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Eastland. Well, yeah. As Steve Mitchell points out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a parody on all of the big trends in comics of the time. I mean, it was a parody book. I mean, it went more than that. There are a lot of Turtles fans out there, but Eastman and Laird. I mean, look, you have teenagers. What was big at the time? Teen Titans and other young characters like in the Legion, and even the X-Men were young. Mutants, the X-Men were all the rage at the time. Ninjas, Frank Miller's Daredevil popularized them. Turtles, funny animal comics or anthropomorphic comic books were always big in comics. So yeah. Now again, they were kind of they were poking fun, and maybe it was good to, like Steve says, the word insult. Were they insulting comic readers? I don't know, but it backfired because it made them bazillionaires, because their comic, of course, was taken relatively seriously, but then they've lamented this later. The Turtles got marketed to kids, and then there you go with the cartoons and the toys. And like all the Star Wars genre bad stuff, not the fault of Star Wars. I respect it. Yeah, well, there you go. That's what I'm saying. You're gonna get your knockoffs, and you're gonna get your ill-advised stuff coming along, copying the good stuff. It happens. I mean, that's life. But Alan Moore got started. He worked in an abattoir, had a lot of other different types of jobs. But if you ever read any of his early interviews or any of the things he said, or even some of the video interviews, Alan Moore knows the score. Alan Moore really knows us, really came off as like a lot of us. He loved comic books growing up. Well, exactly, Eastland. That's a good point. Martial law was the quintessential poking the eye with a sharp stick. To superheroes was TMNT. Was that more of a was that more of a kind of a lampooning thing? I don't know. I've never talked to Eastman and Laird about that sort of thing. But anyway, but that's true, Eastland, absolutely. But Moore was like the rest of us. He loved comics. He grew up loving comics. There's no way he could have ever written any things he did without the knowledge that he had of comic book superheroes and such in particular, and loving comics. Although he was, as many have said, he's a very cultured individual as well, and he brought a lot of other things from a lot of other forms of literature and art in his comics. I mean, once said in an interview how, if you're going to be a writer, don't think of it as a comic book writer. Think of it as a writer. He thought, and he said many times, one of the problems with a lot of comic book writers is it's a inbreeding, in a sense that comic books writers at the time when Moore was coming in, they were writing comics inspired by the comics that they read and they loved. Now, Moore did love comic books, but he said, if you're going to be a writer, even if you're writing in the medium of comic books, draw on many other sources. Go into a lot of other things, listen to music way outside the comics, music and other art way outside the comics, mainstream, read literature from all over the place, and, incorporate those elements into your comic book stories. That's why Moore's stories were so different at the time, revolutionary for mainstream comics and science fiction, fantasy, and superhero related genres and characters that he started writing for. And actually, the first thing not the first thing, because he did some other like small strips and stuff like this. This is just a compilation here. Alan Moore. This is a volume that compiled some of Alan Moore's early work, Maxwell the Magic Cat. This was, of course, an Acme Press, just a compilation, but I have these. Well, and I did not know. My good buddy Steve is an animator, so he knows a lot of these things. Brad Bird, who I think is really good, said the exact same thing to animators. Well, there you go. I did not know that, Steve. Thanks. Alan Moore definitely said that in a lot of interviews and different things. And so there you go. Appreciate that, Steve. But Moore got his start early on doing like a little strip that was kind of his disturber. He did under the name Jill DeRay, of course. And I have these. They're kind of fun. They're weird. He did this for the back of some English publication whose name eludes me at the moment because I had to go take care of some other stuff and I haven't looked into it. Yeah, about not just studying animation. Excellent. Well, there you go. Good on Brad Bird. That is a good way to approach things. Yeah. So, and but that was one of his first things. Other than Jill DeRay was a famous murderer, I do believe. But Moore early on got his start with Marvel UK, writing Doctor Who comics, not stories actually with the actual Doctor himself, of course. And what we're going to do here, we're just going to kind of go, none of this is going to be super in depth because we're just going to show you some of the things he did, and of course we're going to get a little bit more involved with some of his greater work or works that anyway that I and even Carlos, if he ever gets here, love, of course. But we're also just going to briefly touch on some of the other things he's done. Get the info out there on his career, things he's done, because you can get all this stuff all over the place. You can find it. And he wrote these little short stories. He wrote a number of them for the character of those of us who are Doctor Who fans. A number of them for Doctor Who in the Marvel UK Doctor Who monthly or weekly magazines, I believe it was at the time, as you can see here. And he even wrote. Well, let's see here. We finally have our visitor.
Hi, how's it going?
What's up, boy?
Sorry about that. I just had a few things to do. How long have you been on?
Well, I had a problem with my setup and microphone thing, so missed the first 12 minutes or so. And
okay.
I just started talking. I haven't done much.
Okay, good.
But I never got a chance to confirm with how we're going to do it. So I'll just tell you real quick. Basically, what we're going to kind of do is
we would be here for 3 years if we talked in depth of everything Alan Moore did. By the way, everyone, Carlos, everyone.
It's a pleasure to meet each and every one of you.
I still have that shirt, by the way.
Yes. You see this? This shirt, I would just like to say, this was not mine. This was yours. You gave this to me sometime during the 90s. You said, this doesn't fit me anymore. Do you want it? I'm like, are you crazy? Yes. Of course I want it. Give it to me now.
Nice. I'm glad you still have it, man.
I still have it. I will never get rid of it. I love it. It is not only a true gift from a true friend, it represents to me the best thing that Alan Moore ever wrote. Now, I know people vary. Some people think it's From Hell. Some people think it's V for Vendetta. But for me, Watchmen marks like a starting point for my tastes. You know, kind of like I used to like certain kind of comics. And after Watchmen, I could never go back to those comics. I don't know if I can explain myself like that. Like, I'm not saying the comic books that I read were bad before, but they were just didn't ask that much of the reader. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, Eric K. Yeah.
So that was my problem. Like, just for context, the day that I went to BSI, remember that great comic shop that we used to frequent.
Right.
The day that I went to get,
thank you, Eric.
Day that I went to get Watchmen #1, I also got 2 copies of G.I. Joe Special Missions. Why? Because I thought they were going to be valuable someday. Now, of course, I'm not throwing shade, if that's the right word, on Larry Hama. I do, G.I. Joe Special Missions was a good comic, but it was nowhere near the virtuosity of what Alan Moore was working on Watchmen. I finished reading Watchmen. I had to read it again. And then I had to read the prose part, the text piece after it. Because I needed to know more. I needed to know more. And the thing is, back then, I was a very stupid kid who refused to read prose. I had to read something with drawings on it. I would not read books. I would just add an aversion to books. But I needed to know more. So I read that excerpt from Under the Hood by Hollis Mason.
Hollis Mason.
And I just knew so much more. And the great thing about what Alan Moore does with those text pieces is he writes in their voice. He writes in Hollis Mason's voice. He writes in Dan Dryberg's voice. He writes in, what's Rorschach's real name? I forget.
Walter J. Kovacs. Walter Joseph Kovacs, yeah.
He writes in their words, in their the way they would talk, not how he would talk. And that is that's how great Alan Moore is. And as I've told you, I have a theory. I think he's always five years or 10 years ahead of his audience, which is why people like Grant Morrison and Neil Gaiman hit bigger than he does, because they're right there with their audience. But Alan Moore is so far above us all. He's never gotten some of the due that I think he deserves. And because right now he's a wizard who's just saying nutty stuff all day.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are not taking a chance with him, and they should, because he's one of the best writers in comic books ever. Period.
No question about it. And what we're going to basically do, everyone, is I started out right before Carlos got here. I told them a little bit about some of Alan Moore's philosophy on writings. I started out also saying, look, he's in the media right now. He's the past few years, he's a bitter old wizard saying all kind of crap. But we're going to focus on the good stuff, or at least his 20th century work, because I'm not really into anything he did after that, to be honest. But we will touch on most of it. We're going to go brief with a lot of it, everyone. What we'll do is sort of like, this is going to be sort of, in a way, sort of like a checklist. And we're going to stop and spend some time. But let's see, everybody knows about Watchmen.
Yes.
Everybody knows about even V for Vendetta because there was a film, and everybody knows some of his bigger works, which we will, of course, touch on. But what we want to do is kind of bring the at least a few little mentions to some of the other stuff, maybe a bit more of his obscure work before that, and even after. and we're going to touch, and just touching on it a little bit, and then we're going to touch on some of the stuff we really, really love that is not that, and we're just going to try to do it we can't stay in perfect order. Everyone, we might skip around a little, but we're going to try to stay
Right.
as much of a straight line as we can. We'll mention some stuff. We're not going to do a lot of spoilering and that kind of stuff or anything. We will talk about things we like about his work, but what we want to do is get a kind of a broad picture out there nice. Wait a second. Let me
You have yours?
Let me see that. I don't use my camera, but yeah. Greatness. We're going to talk about as much of it as we can, everyone. But we're going to kind of give you an idea of the early stuff that not a lot of people know about or remember. It won't be going into any great detail because it just takes so long. We're going to try to give you an overview of his brilliant career in the 80s and his up and down career, I would say, in the 90s a little bit. But so we're going to do that. We're going to start out. I'll just start over since before Carlos got here. I had not gotten that far.
Right.
And
just one thing also, besides, this wonderful T-shirt that you got me, I would have not read this beautiful work if it wasn't for you. You were the one that gave me, or actually lent me, his Halo Jones. Man, those were good comics.
We'll be talking about that. I got some pictures of it. I think Oh God, yeah. We're gonna get there. In fact, relatively soon. All right, everyone. We're gonna kind of get started here again. I am. By the way. Again, sorry for all the late start and all the problems I had with the technical thing at the beginning, everyone there, but we'll get as much as we can in. I had some tech problems earlier before in terms of getting pictures, but we're going to have as many as we can. And we got a lot of great stuff to go over, so we're going to get started here. Let's see here. As I said earlier, this is one of his early things he started on as Jill DeRay on Maxwell the Magic Cat. It was kind of just a fun little backup strip he did, but not too long after he moved over to Marvel UK. This is about where I was when you came in. He did a lot of backup strips. What I'm gonna do is I'll kind of name some of these things, and then Carlos will comment on a lot of them. We'll talk about a little bit of here and there. Sure. We won't spend too long on every one of them, everyone, for obvious reasons, because there's so much stuff.
But the one thing that we should tell everyone is this. We're gonna sound like broken records because basically after every time you mention a story, we're both gonna say, "Oh, that was wonderful," and we're not trying to be repetitive. It's just, what else can you say? The man was just amazing, and a lot of his stuff is just so beautiful, so wonderful, so imaginative.
It's amazing.
All we can do is just corroborate our feelings. We cannot argue about this is better or that is better. It's all great. It's just all fantastic. And stuff that you would not think would be that good is amazing. So we're gonna sound repetitive. We're sorry, but that is
not a problem. Way it goes.
It's Alan Moore.
Eric K. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. We love him, and some don't, but that doesn't matter. We're here to talk about this.
Well,
we're here to celebrate his work.
I think the ones that don't are because of the way he is now. But they should forget about the way he is now and just separate the man from the artist. He's a crazy man, but he's a wonderful artist.
And I've talked to people that don't like Watchmen, dude. What are you going to do? They're out there, but that's okay.
I don't. To those people, I say, one day you will grow up and you will understand the beauty that is Watchmen. Because right now, you're just being a petulant child if you don't understand Watchmen. Don't understand the beauty of Watchmen. And plus, let me just say, okay.
All right, we don't want.
These beautiful prints. That was also a gift from you.
You gotta tell me when you do that so I can get the picture off of there. Hang on.
There you go. Let me see. There you go. Whoa. Right there.
Oh yeah, the Watchmen portfolio stuff. I have those. Of course, I have the signed one. The European one. Great stuff.
You gave me that just for being your friend, and that I can never repay. That
I love it. Yes. Beautiful Dave Gibbons art, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
The only one who should ever be allowed to draw those characters. Just saying. Yeah. But so Alan Moore got started. Good.
We're not going to be giving any love to Before Watchmen.
No.
No.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
But yes, so he started with Marvel. Not started. I mean, around his early work was some of these Doctor Who weekly backups for this. You can see the great Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor, right there. We're getting there. We're getting to that. Don't worry. You don't even have to hold it up. I got a picture of that one.
Okay, good. I just want to brag about what Alan Moore's.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of his trades with him, folks. Look at that. There you go.
Yeah. I had him ready. I had him ready. But okay,
well, early on, like I say, did some Doctor Who backups, and he did some Star Wars backups, as you can all see here. If these pictures will start to try to cut in low, I don't know what's happening to my StreamYards. Hang on, everyone. What in the hell?
Funny story about that.
There we go.
Right there.
This is a great story. It's a great comic right here. Great story. Yeah, I have it.
Short story. You have it. You lent it to me. I read it, and I'm gonna show my ignorance right now. I will. I don't care. I was reading that story, and that was the first time I came up or I saw the word Sith. I did not know that the evil Jedi were called Sith.
Well, you never saw it in the movies.
Right. The thing is, like with me, the only book that I ever read was Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Right. Alan Dean Foster.
Right. And it was the first Star Wars novel. And because they never mentioned the word Sith in the movies, or at least not the first trilogy that I can remember, didn't know what the word Sith was. So I finished reading it. And then I asked our good friend Clarence, because, he was just psycho about Star Wars. I said, dude, what's a Sith? And he had they're evil Jedi, basically. Oh.
Yeah. The term wasn't really bandied around back that much, but it was out there. And and this was a great story. It was, again, one of the Marvel UK Star Wars mags. Recently I picked up a trade with all those UK Marvel stories, Star Wars stories in it, and this is in there, but it's written by nobody because Alan Moore had his name put on.
That's the same thing right here on the Captain Britain one that I have over here that you were about to talk in a little while. Well, it's credited to the original author. It's not credited to Alan.
The original author.
Actually, no. This actually has his name, but he has asked his name to be removed from all future reprints.
Yes. And it's not Marvel can't put his name on anything anymore.
Right.
But see this
in the Miracle Man trades and hardcover.
Yeah, same deal. But this series, of course, this is a compilation that Carlos has showed you here. It was from this mag, Daredevils, a UK Marvel mag, of which there were many. And they had the Marvel, of course, UK was around for a long time, and they did a lot of great stuff. A lot of it was reprints, but actually they did new stories as well over there in the UK edition. And Alan Moore and others wrote many different stories. Actually, so this was a mag that had reprints, so they had Daredevil reprints, things like that. But Captain Britain was over there. That's his second costume. I always liked the red one better, but it was a good series with he and Alan Davis. He's doing something.
Yeah. Well, I always think that we should have to show that this is the original.
Nice! I want that. Oh my God!
This is the original.
Jesus, dude.
Costume.
That's the original Captain Britain costume, and there's the second one there.
The second right here. So just a little compare and contrast.
I like the original. I always love that original. I just love it.
Me too. According to Alan Davis, this costume that I also like was kind of a joke because, as you can see, I don't know if you can see very well on my camera over here. He has a big lion on his chest. That's a big lion. And apparently, according to Alan Davis, that is how you grade eggs in the UK. It has a big lion. It's a good egg.
There you go.
The comic book professionals would always make fun about Captain Britain, saying that he was apparently a good egg, and he had that costume for a very long time. And then when he went to the past, he was doing some adventures in the past, and when he came back to the present, the costume changed into the modern one. Dave Thorpe wrote some of the original stories, and then Alan Davis and Alan Moore took over,
Yeah.
And the Dave Thorpe one were okay, and they set up a lot of good things. And then, of course, Alan Moore takes over, and it's amazing. I think the Fury, this is this character right here, right here, and Mad Jim Jaspers. Those were all created by Dave Thorpe, but I mean, Alan Moore really took them all the way. And also, as you all know, the Marvel Universe is Universe 616. That is the numbering.
Right.
The first time that number was used to describe the Marvel Universe, or to that was mentioned along with the multiverse, was in Captain Britain, because Captain Britain is one of a Captain Britain Corps. They guard the multiverse, and there are millions and millions of Captain Britons. And that is why it was determined that our universe, or the Marvel Universe, is 616. But it started right here. It did not start in Avengers. It did not start in Fantastic Four. And according to something that I read over there, it is kind of an inside joke for Alan Moore and Dave Thorpe, because apparently 616 is an alternate number for the Beast. So sometimes in some books it's 666. In some other books, it's 616. So
yeah, gotcha.
So basically, every time they call the Marvel Universe Universe 6 or Earth 616, it's like saying it's the Earth of the Beast.
Well, sometime around that, unless you got anything else to go with on Captain Britain, other than recommend you picking up this trade, everyone. You should look into it. This is a really good comic. Some of his earliest work. Yes,
and the thing is, you would not think there would be a lot to do with Captain Britain, but
no,
there's
he did.
a lot.
Yeah.
And also, I think in one of the issues, it was a good training ground for what he later did in Swamp Thing. You will, of course, eventually get to Swamp Thing. And the first story that he did for Swamp Thing, the big story, because first he tied up the loose ends.
They did anatomy lesson. We're going to get to that.
Anatomy lesson is fantastic, and as you know, he deconstructed the character and recreated him again.
Yeah, of course.
Right. The first time that I recall him doing that is right here, when in I think the first issue that he does, he kills Captain Britain, and there's just a few bones left, and they regrow him from these bones, and they recreate the character. They redefine the character.
More like to do that.
Yeah, so saying that none of this stuff worked before, but instead of throwing it out, we're going to just rebuild from the ground up. He did it with Swamp Thing, he did it with Miracle Man, of course, or Marvel Man, whatever you want. He did it with Captain Britain, and of course he did it much, much later. I hope we get there with, of course, Supreme.
Oh, dude, what do you think? Who are you talking to?
The man that recommended Supreme to me. That's what I'm talking about.
All right, my friend. Well, again, at this time, we're kind of being a little loosey-goosey. We're not doing an actually exact timeline, everyone, but we're running around the things that Moore did in his early UK career. He worked also for 2000 AD magazine and did a few wonderful strips for being DR and Quench.
Right here.
Which, here's the first trade I got, the old Titan album.
You, of course, lent me those. I did not even know they existed. They did not look all that interesting to me. Man, was I wrong. They're amazing.
DR Quinch, everyone, these are ball-bustingly funny comics. Alan Moore and Alan Davis, hilarious, very subversive, of course, like a lot of the 2000 AD stuff. I was a Judge Dredd fan first, and I've read a lot. I have a lot. As you remember, I had a bunch of 2000 ADs, and I loved 2000 AD. I loved Nemesis. I loved Robo Hunter. I loved a lot of Rogue Trooper, and of course, Dredd was the best. Dredd was my favorite, and this was DR and Quench, my friends. If you have not read that, and that's kind of the point of this show, we wanted to show you some of the stuff you may not have heard of unless you're an old timer, and this was really good.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, according to him, the first story was kind of like a one-off story. It was not supposed to have a continuation, but because it received great acclaim, they decided to do more stories with these characters. Now, the funny thing is the first story is so totally hilarious. It's these two aliens come to Earth just to create an insult. Like the Earth masses form an insult in a language. And it was all done because they hated the principal of their school.
Oh
They
my
wanted
God.
to make fun of him. So it's hilarious. And the thing is, DR stands for diminished
This
responsibility.
responsibility, yeah.
Yeah.
And Quench doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really talk or anything.
It's just it's really funny. And according to something I read, this has nothing to do with anything. But there's a really kind of lame ass movie by Robert Altman, one of my favorite directors. And the name of the movie is OC and Stigs.
Oh yeah, that's right. I know about that.
That's where he got the
Yes.
inspiration for DR and Quench. I've not seen the movie because I saw like 10 seconds of it. Did not look very good. But this book is just wonderful. So of course, now you had yours. You lent me yours. I read it like at least twice, and it was just so good. I said I need my own. So I got like
Nice.
the modern one. It's by
I haven't seen that one.
It's by 2000 AD.
Yeah, these albums were all from Titan. Titan used to compile these in the early late 70s, early 80s. In America, this is how we were first exposed, these Titan albums, to Judge Dredd and the other 2080 goodies. And then I collected tons and tons and tons of the newspaper rag format 2000 AD. If you remember, I had a ton of those things.
Yes,
and staying with 2000 AD, Moore did a really strange series called Skiz. We're getting to that, by the way.
Skiz.
It was sort of like his perverted ET, sort of in a sense, in a strange way. But it's been a long time since I've read it, but it was very interesting.
I think what you said is pretty much it. It's just trying to do the alien gets to Earth, and just wacky adventures happen. It's not as funny as DR and Quench, but it's very interesting because Alan Moore always likes or always can take stories that you're so used to seeing and do them in a new way. You know?
Yep. Yeah.
In fact, there's a really, really good issue of Swamp Thing where it's kind of like similar to that, where these little tiny aliens get to the swamp where Swamp Thing lives, and it's more about those aliens that a Swamp Thing story.
Yeah, the Pogo issue, sort of.
Yes, it's a Pogo issue, and it's very similar to this. You know, it's just what would happen if it would have alien contact, and it would just be a very tiny story, a very like it's not like a world-ending invasion. It's just like you said, like an ET story. I read it a long, long time ago. I don't have the actual issues. I think I read it online, so I must.
Yeah, it's fun though.
I must. Yeah, it's a cute little thing. But yeah, that one is really good.
This here, Moore also did a lot of these Tharg's Future Shock short stories, different anthology types thing, and he did have a recurring character in there. This is my Titan album, original Titan album, and you have a different version there, but
yeah,
these are hilarious. Some crazy, just insane stories, man. Fun though.
The one that you have two, you have Future Shocks, which are these, well, right over here, Future Shocks.
Tharg's Future Shocks, yeah.
And the Time Twisters, right here.
Yes, I have that one as well here. I'm putting up another picture in a sec here.
You have both. You have both. They're wonderful. And of course, the one that I have has both of them, right? And the character you mean to talk about, I think his name is Targ. Yeah. This guy.
He's sort of the narrator. For those who never read 2080, Targ's the narrator. Yeah, Tharg rather. Yeah, he was something.
They're just funny issues. That just he can do so much in such a tiny amount of time. You know, just few eight-page
stories. Yeah.
8-page stories. Like there's this one with time cops, and it's just hilarious. Just just all the twists that are here are just incredible, because these two people are time cops, and at some point one of them becomes his own grandfather. It's a whole thing. You better read it. You better read it. It's
No,
hilarious.
it's fun stuff. It's nutty stuff. And I love this. He had one character that was recurring. I believe was it Twisted Times, or was it in Shocking Futures, that had this
Guy.
really? Yeah, I'm finding the
Abelard.
picture. That Abelard Snaz.
Right here. Yeah.
There's the pic. There he is. Big old picture of him right there. That's an
Yeah.
Alan Moore nut job character, if you ever saw one, folks.
Do you know
he was
why?
hilarious? This guy was crazy.
He's kind of like the Crypt Keeper, if you will, just a funny guy to follow him around. And the reason that he has a double set of eyes is because somewhere along the line, Alan Moore read that something that just kind of gives you a headache as a reader is to see two pairs of eyes, like one above the other. So he actually got the character to look like that, to kind of annoy and distract the audience, because you cannot look at a guy with two sets of eyes for very long. So I kind of enjoy that little thing. In fact, for those people out there that use Instagram for a little while there was an Instagram filter where you could give yourself two pairs of eyes. And the people that did that really gave me a headache when I would try to look at those pictures. So yeah,
it's crazy.
It does work. It does work.
The Jester of Sin, my friend, thank you for being here. And as if we would forget what some of us might consider his best 2008, he worked the wonderful Ballad of Halo Jones.
Right here, yeah.
In 2008. This one, I mean, it was an epic. This was a monumental epic on his part, that they had to use 3 different of the Titan albums to compile it all, starting, and they all look like this.
Yes.
These are how I got them.
Yes. I, of course, did not know they existed. You lent them to me. I said, I hated the guy, Ian Gibson. The first time I saw Ian Gibson art was in a DC Mr. Miracle stuff. Remember when the Justice League?
Yes.
Keith Giffen came out?
Yeah, I wasn't big on that one either.
The character of Mr. Miracle was kind of popular in the Justice League, so he and Barda and Oberon got their own comic. It was the art was by, I think it was J.M. DeMatteis doing the writing. I don't remember really well, but I do remember Ian Gibson's art, and I did not like his art. So when you lent me the only reason I read them was because of Alan Moore. I was mesmerized from the get-go. It was just amazing because, as you said, it's an epic story. It's this girl she's like, if you will, like a valley girl, like an 80s valley girl.
Yeah.
Who has no future, who has nothing to really live for, because she's just this little girl who goes to the mall and hangs out with her friends. And throughout the story, she becomes one of the most important characters in the universe. And she becomes a war hero, and then just everything that happens, it's just amazing. And the twists and turns are for a life you would not expect. The ending is poetic. The art, you get used to it. The language, because it's kind of like a futuristic kind of language.
He made up almost a whole language, or at least a vernacular for this comic. That's incredible.
And the thing is, at first you don't get it, but through repetition, you start getting it, and you go, "My God, this man is creating this whole universe that is just like ours, but just a few centuries up in the future." It's wonderful. And again, we're gonna sound repetitive.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But what can we say? There's nothing bad about the stuff he did, like in the 80s, some of the 90s, because I still like some of his 90s work. But right now we have lost him. The man is nuts. And it's so sad, because I wish he would go back to these kind of things, to really tell these wonderful, wonderful stories. It's really sad.
Yeah. We don't have to go too good.
At least we have these. At least we
No.
have.
Oh, well, we're getting there. Just a little brief mention. This was a kind of a strange comic. Did the Bo Jeffrey saga, which was kind of funny.
Wonderful.
It was a real fun book. It's been so long since I've read it. I got to be honest with you. I need to read it again. It's been a while. So, but I just remembered it was really, again, crazy stuff, but really in a good way.
I have it. I forgot to get it, but I do have it.
That's okay.
Among my albums. And the one thing that I have to say is, it kind of reminds me of like one of those weird sitcoms from the 60s, like the Addams Family or the Munsters, where like there are these weird people, but they don't think they're weird. Everybody around them finds them kind of disturbing, but to them, it's just, life is normal for them. And it's really interesting. It's really funny. It's kind of like these, they did this a lot in movies, in like English movies, where they have all these quirky characters, like in or like series like Faulty Towers. You have all these quirky characters, or like, I don't know, the Full Monty or Kinky Boots. You have all these weird characters. The same thing here, and they may look like monsters, but they're very human in their attitudes and the way they interact with each other. It's a fun little comic book. It doesn't change the world, but it will change your state of, your just state of what you want to call it, humor. If you're in a bad mood, you read this, you're gonna have fun.
Fun comic, yeah.
Fun comic.
Now for part one of the Big Kahuna, because we're going to start with them, then we're going to jump over some stuff because we're doing sort of a chronological order, and then we're going to get back to them.
Yes.
Marvel Man. Anyone remember Warrior magazine? This is where I first saw him. Oh, and this is when he was called the Big Marvel Man, but yes, later Miracle Man. We're going to talk about that as well. This was I think it was his first foray into the deconstruction of comics. Just to give you all a little bit of a background on it, for those who don't know, I'm not going to go far down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
But a wonderful character that both Carlos and I love is called Captain Marvel, the real deal.
Yes.
He's the one who says Shazam, folks, just in case you didn't know. And in the early 50s,
feminist Kree warrior.
Well, in the early 50s, as we all know, there was a comic that it was hugely popular with Fawcett, and then because of a big dispute and the fact that Fawcett went out of business after fighting with National, aka DC Comics, for so long, they went out of business. Well, it just so happens that Captain Marvel was hugely popular in the UK as well. But something happened. They stopped getting Captain Marvel comic books over there. Well, that won't work. They were really selling a lot of them. So, Kimoda indeed, sir. A character was created called Marvel Man by an artist named Mick Angelo, I believe it was.
Mick Anglo.
Anglo, okay, fair enough. And he became hugely popular over there. And again, none of us knew about it over here. But they had, whereas the world for 20 years until DC resurrected the character after they stole him in a way. 20 years of no Captain Marvel over here. They had Marvel Man.
And the thing is, it's kind of funny because if you read those old Captain Marvels, Otto Binder and CC Beck did kind of like it was more of a comedy, type of comic as opposed to a Superman, which was more of a science fiction, adventure kind of comic. Captain Marvel, and I'm not, I love Captain Marvel. He's my second favorite hero right after Batman. It was more of a humor kind of comic.
It was a bit. Well, later when CC Beck started changing it a little. Yes.
Yeah. But it was kind of more of a humorous comic as opposed to something like Captain Marvel Jr. was a lot more serious. But Captain Marvel was kind of a funnier strip.
Yes.
And what happened is kind of like when you have the copy of the copy, because in the end, I love Shazam or Captain Marvel, however you want to call him, but he was kind of a copy of Superman, and Marvel Man was a definite copy of Captain Marvel, and it kind of lost a lot of his seriousness. And some of those original Marvel Man strips are horrible. They're unreadable. They're stupid beyond belief. Even with the name of the secondary characters, because Marvel Man you kind of get, but his the second kid who gets superpowers, he's young Marvel Man.
Yeah,
and
then
the younger
Marvel
one,
Man.
Kid Marvel Man, and then the bad guy, instead of Black Adam, you have Young Nasty Man.
Right.
That's pretty stupid. I mean, there's no way you can't defend that. You know,
No. It was. We knew what they were. We know what they were doing, but the kids over there did. But the kids didn't know.
Of course not.
No.
It was the 50s.
Yeah, and they grew up loving it, and
the 40s.
it kind of. Yeah, well, and I guess the character was not in use very much. Let's just say when Warrior Magazine let this monster get a hold of it, and probably his first foray into definitely his first foray into deconstructing superheroes. Now, everyone, there was a book by Robert Mayer called Super Folks.
I think I have it here.
Yeah, a lot of people often have accused Alan Moore of strip mining for his deconstructionist superhero stuff, and it's hard to argue with. But I just as an aside, I didn't put a picture up of it or anything like that. But anyway,
you recommended that book to me. I finally got it.
Yeah,
and basically,
it's weird.
It's not a bad book, but the only thing he really took away from that book is that at some point that book mentions that there's a superhero character who would say a magic word to get his powers, and he forgot his magic word. The only thing really that Alan Moore took from that book was that.
Yeah, well, I mean, for this book anyway, there's another comic he's used it for that we'll get to later.
Oh, yeah. That when a character,
you don't want
to. Let's not spoil that.
But that book's a parody, by the way. That book is a satire.
Yeah. But the thing is, people always do this. I was looking at at this guy who was doing this whole really deep investigation about the Lion King, because as you know, there's this anime called Simba the White Lion, and a lot of people. Yeah, well, that's
okay. Oh, okay, I got you.
A lot of people say that Disney stole just a whole cloth from Simba the White Lion, and this guy actually took the time to watch every episode of that anime, which is like 100 and so episodes, to see what the commonalities are. He basically says people are just saying that they're similar because one is called Simba and the other one's called Kimba. But really, there's just apples and oranges. They're cartoon lions, but the stories are not the same. The same thing with Superfolk and Marvel Man. He takes one thing here, but he makes it his own. He does not copy the entire book, and that's what people must.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Marvel Man. In Warrior Magazine, and Quality also did this fine. This mostly they did a lot of reprinting of the old Marvel Man comics as well. For those who were trying to, and I was reading it in in Warrior, and I have those, and I was really enjoying it. But guess what? It stopped. To be continued. That also happened with another series Alan Moore was doing in Warrior. I think some of you probably heard of it. Called V for Vendetta, which we'll touch on a little bit more later. But there's of course the trade. We're going to get to it later. I'm kind of jumping over because remember at this point, Warrior collapsed and left both stories undone.
Right, and also it's important to know both 2000 AD and Warrior were both black and white magazines.
Yes.
And when they were reprinted in the U.S., they got color representations of both A Miracle Man and V for Vendetta.
Correct. Yes, and they would come back. They would return because Alan Moore would go over to the States, not physically really, and become a super duper star with this comic that some of you may have heard of.
Yes.
One of the look, and to give a little background on this one, for me, some personal background. Oh yeah, dude, I love that first trade they did.
Yes.
When this came out, I was working in a comic book store. Yeah, I know everyone gets you worked at comic shops. You say that too much, whatever. But I did, and I was. And this book, this was 82ish, 83, somewhere up in there. But
right.
As some of you may know, there was no internet. This comic was bi-monthly.
Yes.
It had started They started the series back up, sort of, revival of, it once existed in the classic Lin Wayne Burning Wrightson series of the early 70s. Highly acclaimed. It did not last very long. They brought it back because there was an Avco Embassy film being made by Wes Craven, and it kind of plodded along for like 19 issues. And then when issue number 20 came along, well, before that, it had gone bi-monthly, right?
Yes.
So, the book was bi-monthly. It was near cancellation. Editor at the time, Karen Berger, Alan Moore's work was getting some attention. Some of the work we were just talking about was getting some attention, and Moore was called upon to write again. They do this sometimes. It's just they try to find somebody to write a book that no one really is buying. I wasn't selling a lot of copies of it. This is a cover by the guy who had been drawing the book along. I think it's a Tom Yates cover there, and Marty Pasco had been writing it. It wasn't that great a book, to be honest with you. I like Swamp Thing, but it was I probably dumped it. And I can't, Carlos, I can't exactly remember how I heard about this in terms, because why would I pick this book up? I'd already dropped it. You don't see Alan Moore's name on there. No one knew who he was. And so at that time, Frank Miller was big. John Byrne was big. New Teen Titans, Wolfman Perez. You had a lot of great stuff going on, but Swamp Thing was in the crapper. Not that we didn't like Swamp Thing, just the book wasn't very good. Nothing against Marty Pasco, who passed away recently. And anyway, so let's see if they're messing with me here, Eric. Yeah, see, I say it too much, I guess. I don't know. I just say it because when I'm referring to a story, but this is not one I own. I ran this one. But anyway, so I can't. You know what? I can't really remember where I heard about him. I mean, back then the comic press was Amazing Heroes and Comics Journal. I may have read about it in Comics Journal. But someone somewhere, somehow it got to me that they say, man, you got to pick up Swamp Thing. Everyone's saying it's really good now all of a sudden. Well, they weren't wrong. This is my first exposure to Alan Moore because that I know of. Now, maybe I read a couple 2080 reprints here and there, but this is probably it. And then I think I went back and got number 20, which was just called Loose Ends. But this comic book, ladies and gentlemen, is, of course, entitled The Anatomy Lesson.
Well,
this is a masterpiece, folks. And this one right there, that's it. I'm said this guy writes it, I'm there.
Well, to me, the way that I got to Swamp Thing, it's a whole big thing. But as you well know, my memory is really good, so I remember every step. Of course, I saw the movie that you mentioned. It was a Wes Craven movie, I do believe. It was horrible. It was pretty bad. But I saw it, so I knew that Swamp Thing existed. I knew that he existed in comic books because I had a Mexican reprint of Challengers of the Unknown when Deadman and Swamp Thing were guest starring in the book every so often. So I knew. I knew the existence of Swamp Thing as a comic book, but I always liked good-looking superheroes, not monsters. So I never paid that much attention to the character. But every time I would read a DC book, they would always mention when their top-tier books were winning awards. So they showed. I remember in the back front cover or the back cover, or the inside front cover or the inside back cover of one of their comic books. They said these are the top 10 comic books monthly, and of course I think number 1 was X-Men. I think number 2 was Batman, and I remember New Teen Titans was very high up there because back in the 80s, New Teen Titans was just an amazing comic book.
Oh yeah,
and Swamp Thing, Saga of the Swamp Thing, always kept appearing in these top 10 lists. I'm like, why? It's a Swamp Thing, it's such a silly character. It's a stupid character. But every time I would go to I was studying high school in the United States, and every time we would have summer break for 3 months, I would go back to Cancun, which is where I'm from, and I would have 3 months of no new comic books. There would be in the comic book shop that I went to, which of course I also worked there for a little while. But of course, there would be no new comic books for me for 3 months. So I would be starving. So what I would do is, before I left for Cancun, I would buy a bunch of comic books to have something to read. So I said, what the hell? There's the Saga of the Swamp Thing trade paperback. I'm gonna get it, whatever. So it was there in my house like 2-3 weeks before I left for Cancun, and I said, I knew not who Alan Moore was. So I kind of opened it. I read the introduction, the foreword, and I was like, whatever. I read the first, 2-3 pages of Anatomy Lesson. I closed it, went to the comic book shop, and bought every issue. I think it was from 27 or 26 on. I bought everything just on the faith of 2-3 pages. That's how much of an impact Alan Moore had. And I just had everything. And then I read it, and it's just that annual is amazing.
This annual, oh my God, dude.
It's a trip to hell.
Unbelievable.
And it's such a wonderful hell that it creates. Neil Gaiman used the same hell that Alan Moore created. But of course, all the Neil Gaiman Sandman fans give him the credits for that hell. But no, that is the hell that Alan Moore created. And many years later, there's another voyage to hell in an issue of Spawn in Image comic books. It's a whole different version of hell. And that's one of the things that I love about Alan Moore. He doesn't have to repeat himself. His imagination is so vast, he doesn't need to repeat himself, And also, before that, Martin Pasco had established that Matt Cable had superpowers for no good reason. Really, no good reason. But what Alan Moore does with these superpowers is amazing. The character of Matt Cable dies. He's then possessed by Anton Arcane, the big bad of Swamp Thing stories. And then Anton Arcane proceeds to use Matt Cable's body to have sex with Matt Cable's wife, who just happens to be his niece. So, this man was working on a whole other level. And that is around the time that Swamp Thing could no longer carry the comic code.
Yes. They did a story called Love and Death. I think it was issue number 29 or something like that, which lost them the vaunted comics code. Which they were all they were proud of. Alan Moore and Bissett and Totalman, they wore that as a badge of honor. They were quite pleased with that.
And that's when they started saying that that comic book was called for mature readers, and it was sophisticated suspense. And I always love that word sophisticated because a lot of people go for that. It has to be grim and gritty and realistic.
Yeah,
really, I like the word sophisticated better. It's for sophisticated tastes.
And we should note that Alan Moore created that his own run of Swamp Thing, especially the early ones, are phenomenal. And he created a character that lasted forever. No one gives him enough credit for, and Mr. John Constantine.
Yes.
Later in Hellblazer, he's pretty popular right now, but I don't know how many people know that he based him on Sting.
Right.
And he first appeared in Swamp Thing.
Do you know why, right? The artists, I think Steve Bissett and Joan Tovelman were really big fans of Sting.
Yeah.
And Alan Moore said, guys, I really enjoy working with you. Do you have any requests? Would you like me to do something in the book so you guys can have more fun? And they go, can you do a character that looks like Sting? And he goes, what?
Yeah.
And of course, because he's Alan Moore, he creates a wonderful, memorable character. Now, I've tried to read Hellblazer, and this is props to Jamie Delano. His books are so twisted. They're so disgusting. I've only managed to read the first 2. And I'm not saying because they're bad. It's because they're just that good at portraying the underbelly of the occult of DC.
But Hellblazer is very popular.
One quick thing for Steve Mitchum. Please, please, please go to the YouTube channel called Your Movie Sucks, YMS. He's the guy that does the whole retrospective on Kimba the White Lion and saying how he did how Disney didn't steal it from the anime. Please go watch those videos. It's a series of videos, really good. You should watch them, and then you can say you can judge for yourself if Disney stole or not. He explains it better than me. He explains it better.
Oh, God. Okay. Good old buddy. Hey, Eric K. Thanks for being here, man. It's so great to see you, my friend. Some people laugh when they say comics had an impact on your life or impact on the way you live your life and deal with people. But like all literature, it will impact you. Absolutely.
Yes.
And those of us, that's why, well, we're here talking about them in pretty serious, although fun way. So that's exactly right, Eric. Thank you, man. Absolutely. They've influenced our lives, as you can't tell.
all I can say is the reason that I get up every day at 6 a.m. to work out at 7:20 a.m. is because I want to be like Batman. So that's the one thing I can say.
And well, yeah, we do love that love the bat. By the way, yes, Steve mentioned he's an animator. So he studies that stuff. He knows that stuff.
Good,
so, yeah.
Good. Then you will really, really enjoy those videos by YMS or Your Movie Sucks. Please watch them.
Steve is not only an animator, but he in fact also is Batman.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah. I don't. You've met him. You've met Steve.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wait. Yeah. Now I do remember he had a Batman suit. Now I have my own.
He has a Batman. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. He had a Batman suit. I remember it's Batman.
The story is hammered. Please go watch those videos and then we can discuss it.
Again, I don't know if maybe he has. I don't know. Anyway, so Swamp Thing got that rocket into Alan Moore to stardom.
Yes.
Comic book stardom. And at the time, a lot of people don't understand this now. You have to understand something about this that I've always wanted, that I've said a lot. At that time in the comic book industry, there were, of course, many writers that we liked. We liked Marv Wolfman and Len Wein, who created Swamp Thing. Roy Thomas. There were a lot of writers. Steve Gerber. There were plenty of good writers. Do not get me wrong. But a comic book writer was never a superstar in comics ever. Until Alan Moore. There was never a time, like in the Comics Buyer's Guide, Buyer's Guide or the Price Guide, for example, and would say, this issue is worth more because Neil Adams drew it, excuse me.
Right, yeah.
Or what have you. Yes, Denny O'Neil was acclaimed. They had acclaimed writers, not saying that. Don McGregor, there were plenty of wonderful ones. Jim Starlin. But a superstar was so much so that when they started making the Price Guide, it would say, instead of saying like, drawn by Kirby or drawn by whomever, right? Ditko or King, it would actually say, and this never happened, never, Alan Moore issue. If it were an Alan Moore, it wasn't John Byrne or Perez or any of these guys. They were superstars because they were artists and it's a visual medium. Alan Moore's the first time. Now there are plenty of them. You got your Neil Gaiman and your Grant Morrisons and your Lauren Ellis's and your Mark. Those people, Garth Ennis. That didn't happen until Alan Moore came along and did it. Yes, everyone knew who writers were, but he's the first one that did that. The first superstar writer.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong. He was the first of the wave of English writers, because right after him, they kind of started searching for more English writers who had a different take on the superhero genre, and they got Neil Gaiman, they got Grant Morrison, Peter Milligan, what's his face, Garth Ennis, Mark Millar, etc., etc.
Yeah. But I just want to point that out.
They really gave DC especially just that shot of adrenaline that they needed. Because Shade the Changing Man was a comic book that just was nobody cared about him until what's his face got him. Peter Milligan. Animal Man was just this. He was part of the Forgotten Heroes. That's how forgotten he was.
Absolutely, yeah. By the way, Steve has seen those videos. Good, and he said, well, Disney stole Mickey Mouse from a guy named Paul Terry. There you go.
I totally believe you.
He knows his animation.
No. I totally believe him. But just from what I saw in those videos, I don't think Disney stole that much. But that's just me. Let's agree to disagree.
No, he's talking about you're talking about Lion King thing, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Yeah, not the other one. But anyway, so Alan Moore now launched to superstardom as a comic book writer, or at least in the mid or getting there with the Swamp Thing. Wrote a few other things for DC we're going to be talking about. And you can see them all right here, which is a good thing. And that's because he wrote a bunch of stories, either short stories or one-offs, or in one case, our two-parter here and there. Not tons and tons and tons of stuff, but enough to fill a nice trade, as you see here. And some of these stories are some of the most wonderful and brilliant uses of these characters you'll ever see. Now, Carlos, what we'll do, we're going to do these before we get to the big kahuna Superman. We're going to get to more Superman,
Right.
don't get me wrong. But we're going to do this one first.
Just before we go further, we mentioned Miracle Man. We didn't mention why
we're coming back to that.
They changed his name.
We're coming back to that. We're going to go here. We're doing sort of chronology.
Okay, good.
Don't worry. I'm not forgetting that.
Okay. That's very
we're
important.
all over Miracle Man and V for Vendetta. Don't worry.
Okay, now these stories are wonderful, and the thing is, when I read them originally, I did not know who Alan Moore was, nor the importance of Alan Moore. But I remember a lot of these stories, like especially the ones that came in Omega Man, or the ones that were part of the Green Lantern Corps comic, or annual, if you will. I would read those stories and I would go, "Oh my, this is kind of interesting. I've never seen it like this." And then when you told me, "Oh, that's because it's Alan Moore," you go, "Oh, now that issue, that vigilante issue, that is so twisted.
It's so brutal. This is a messed up. That's a messed up comic book right there.
Yeah,
and that wasn't even a good comic. Vigilante, I never really thought was very good.
No, it was not very good. And the thing is, the introduction of the character Adrian Chase within the issues of New Teen Titans is a great character. But after he goes on his own way, he's kind of like a really lame ass Punisher. So he was not. Those two issues. Exactly. Those two issues. I mean, they will cause you nightmares. This issue, this is a really good issue because it does not focus on Batman. It focuses on the third Clayface and how he falls in love with a mannequin. It's really good. It's really, really funny.
That was really good. He did a Green Arrow 2-part backup in Detective Comics, right here, and he didn't again.
It was a night Olympics, right?
Night Olympics is what it was called. Again, we're just kind of touching on these folks because you should seek them out and read them in there. You can find them. Just kind of giving you a ballpark of what Alan Moore was doing at that point. He even did one of the Phantom Stranger origins in this comic, Secret Origins, which was a weird one.
The thing there, the Phantom Stranger is such a bizarre kind of character. DC did not want to marry to one single origin, so they did 4 different origins.
Yes,
and he does one of them, and of course, a lot of those origins are very Christian Catholic based. He's either the man who killed Christ, the man who saved Christ, the man who tortured Christ, or an angel. And the Alan Moore one, I do believe it's an angel, a fallen angel. The Phantom Stranger is a fallen angel. And I love all of those origins a lot better than the one they gave him in the New 52 where he is Judas.
Oh, yeah, screw that. Yeah. Do you remember this weird backup that was in this one? Go ahead.
Yes, I do remember. It's an archaeologist who goes to this different planet, and she meets all these weird aliens, and she decides to mate with one of them, but she does not understand how they mate. They actually kill the woman. Is that the one you mean?
Yep. It was again. This was a book I stopped buying a Mega Bin for a while. It wasn't really all that interesting of a book.
Read the whole series.
You read them all. Oh, there you go. But I kind of I dumped it, and when I heard Alan Moore did a backup at it, and I went and grabbed that sucker and he was doing backup little short stories here and there for like that.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of his forte before he went to Swamp Thing, was the 8-page stories. He'd said that in an interview once. He said it took getting used to switching from 8-page stories to the longer ones, but so he still kind of liked those, and he sure did amazing jobs with those kinds of stories.
Yeah, the first 6 issues of Omega Man, I think, are the only ones worth reading.
Yeah.
And after that, they really did not know what to do, because basically the Omega Men are not superheroes. They're like revolutionaries, and they're trying to free their star system. And by number 6, free their star system. So basically, there is nothing else for them to do. So what happens is for 20 issues, they have nothing to do.
Yeah,
just wander around space until they create new bad guys that take over their star system, and then they have to rebel again. That's basically what happens.
But Mr. Moore, however, would thrive because
Yes.
he would write. Well, man,
Yeah.
A couple of the greatest short stories I've ever seen in comics in my life. Now, this, of course, we all know who Aben Sur is.
Yeah, but the thing is, with this, for what 7 years, 5 years, I do forget. Jeff Johns took over the Green Lantern series,
yes,
right? And his entire series is based on this.
on this one short story in Tales of Green
it.
Lantern Corps.
Everything he did, it's based on this, the Blackest Night prophecy.
Yep, that's right. And again, it's we won't go too far into it because you should read. You got to read this one especially if you're a Green Lantern fan. Everyone knows Aben Sur is the gentleman who and the great Green Lantern who passed on his ring to Hal Jordan.
Yes.
Without going into too much, everyone just basically, if you've ever wondered, if you see Green Lanterns flying all over the universe, and I never thought of this. This is the greatness of Alan Moore here. Did you ever think when you ever read any stories with Hal Jordan, why was the guy in a spaceship? Why did he just crash land? Why was Aben Sur in a spaceship when he passes his ring to Hal Jordan? This will tell you why. I never even thought about it. Moore did and wrote a masterpiece, a very short masterpiece.
It's good. And also, Steve mentions the F-sharp bell.
Oh, we're there. We're getting there.
Wonderful story.
We're getting there, buddy. We're there. We may as well go there right now. Then in another.
But that's the thing. He takes something that it's right there for everyone to see and nobody sees it. And then he goes, okay, let's do a blind Green Lantern who has no concept of what light or color is. It's amazing.
Yes, it's called, this drawn by one of your favorite artists, Bill Willingham of Elemental's fame.
Love Elemental.
Great art. This is the most Star Trek of stories, really, where you have an interesting, crazy science fiction concept of a galaxy that has no light, but has life. You have beings that don't have eyes because they just don't have They don't have light. And the Green Lanterns, for everyone who doesn't know, they're intergalactic police force of a sort, where they try to find someone in each sector who is worthy to wear that Green Lantern ring. Well, green's a color; it's in the light, as you know. So how does Kat Matui send out there to recruit a new Green Lantern? How do you recruit somebody that can't see, that doesn't understand what vision is?
But not only that, the Oath.
The Oath is another thing.
Brightest day. They have no concept of bright or day. In Blackest Night, they have no concept of black or night. It's just the whole vow. It has colors and side references.
In untranslatable. That's when she tries to explain it to him.
It's hilarious.
The ring can't translate it to him. He can't understand it. It's brilliant.
Now this, I don't know. If somebody knows about this, please tell me. One time we were talking about this in one of my radio shows where I talk about comic books. And someone mentioned that somewhere in some place, apparently there, when life was created on Earth, there was a tone that was heard throughout the universe. Now, this, of course, I don't know. This is some kind of sense studies or whatever. But apparently, the sound that was heard when life was created was an F sharp. So maybe that's why he becomes the F sharp bell. Now, of course, this I don't know. But so when we're talking about this particular book, and I mentioned that his name was the F sharp bell, someone said, "Oh, I read somewhere that when life was created in the universe, there was a sound, and the sound was an F sharp." Maybe, I don't know. Just wanted to mention
maybe more new. Yeah, maybe more new.
Alan Moore is a wizard, so of course he would know these.
One other great contribution to the Green Lantern mythos that Moore made, of course, was, again, this guy can not only create a character that's blind, that doesn't understand light, he'll top it with a planet Green Lantern.
Mogo
And-
doesn't
and
socialize.
This Mogo Doesn't Socialize is so good. It was adapted on the really excellent, by the way, Green Lantern Emerald Knights DC animated movie,
Yeah.
which was really fun. And then that's a total Alan Moore kind of a story. They named the guy Bulfunga the Unrelenting. This guy's going looking for Mogo. He's heard these stories about, this. He's basically just a guy who likes to kill, likes to hunt, and wants to hunt the ultimate. He thinks he's heard of this great warrior named Mogo, if you remember.
Yes, I do.
And well, I already spoiled it, everyone, but still, it doesn't matter. This is a wonderful story by Alan Moore and some guy named Dave Gibbons that he might work with later. We just got a feeling.
The thing is, as I mentioned, Jeff Johns used a lot of the stuff that Alan Moore put out there.
He did. Oh, yeah. I love Mogo.
Mogo was used a lot in his Green Lantern run. The rings are made in Mogo's core, and that's where they burst forth and go throughout the universe to find the respective users, owners, masters, whatever you want to call them. And also Bulfunga, the Unrelenting.
I love him. He's like a dude.
Jeff Johns used him in a few issues of Green Lantern Corps, and also the Children of the White Lobe. And I forget what the name of the living city. Remember there was a living city?
I can't remember the name of it either.
It was in the
5 inversions. I remember them.
Yeah. Well, the 5 inversions.
That was in
The 5 inversions. The children they create the Red Lanterns, or at least one of their number creates the Red Lanterns. The 5 inversions are actually 5 terrorists that want to pound the Guardians. One of them creates the Red Lanterns. The 5 inversions, the Children of the White Lobe, and the Living City, and Bulfunga, the Unrelenting, all are take part in Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps by Jeff Johns. And you go, my God, it's so cool that a comic book that came out in the 80s are giving, and short stories that came out in the 80s are giving all these new writers just loads and loads of stuff, because they're like writing what's between the panels, filling out the prophecy, using the character of Mogo. I just thought that's the power of good writing. The stories live forever, and other writers can take them and
it's wonderful, man.
Like that's the cool thing about those Spider-Mans and Fantastic Fours and Avengers by like Stanley, Kirby, and Ditko. People can take those stories and just build more and more on top of them, because we're just such good stories, just immortal stories that just would live forever. Okay.
Well, sir, it's time for the big kahuna.
Oh, really?
Alan Moore and Superman, folks.
Oh, God. Oh, my God, yes.
Alan Moore and Superman. But we're going to start with DC Comics Presents number 85, The Jungle Line, the name of the story. Surprise, surprise, Superman and Swamp Thing, and not your typical DC Presents little story there for Superman. And take it away, if you will. It's pretty fun. Well, fun is the wrong word, maybe, but a very interesting story.
Did not know it existed. You told me about it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. So I went to search for it. I found it. And it's such a wonderful little tiny story, because every time there's a piece of Krypton that falls towards Earth, it is always something Superman can use, or Superman can defend himself from. It could either be like I don't know, like a pet, like Crypto or Beppo, the super monkey, or it could be like pieces of his planet that he can restore and use in his Fortress of Solitude, like the Phantom Zone projector. And sometimes it's different types of kryptonite that he can just wear a lead-lined suit and protect himself. But this time, a part of his world comes down, and it has a tiny little virus that only affects Kryptonians, and he gets it, and that's it. He has all the power in the universe. He cannot do anything against it. He cannot do anything. So Superman does not want to be mourned, does not want to be a martyr, does not want his friends to try to fight against something that they can't fight. So he decides to just allow, his death to come, and he goes as far as he can from his friends so they don't have to see him suffer, so they don't have to see him die. And he decides to go to a lonely swamp in New Orleans, Louisiana. Boom. Perfection. That is Alan Moore. Just and it's just a wonderful way, the way they're exploring the little tiny piece of krypton that fell like from a meteorite, and Superman starts using his his microscopic vision and getting closer and closer and closer to the artifact, which is a rock, and then he sees a little tiny growth, a red growth, and it starts getting bigger, 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 and then he sees it, and then they show his face, and his expression changes because he knows what it is, and it spells death for him. Wonderful comic. Wonderful comic. A little tiny story, perfect story. As you know.
Oh yeah.
More. It's Alan Moore. What can you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, all you can say, Alan Moore. It's worth reading.
Yes, art by. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Art by Rick Veitch and ink by the great Al Williamson, one of my favorites. And this one just blew me away. I mean, I didn't. Again, it just looks. You'd think you'd be used to it, be reading Swamp Thing, but so we're reading a story like that with Superman in it. Was just so different at the time when it first came out. And speaking of blowing you away when it, reading something you just never thought you'd ever read, Superman.
Oh God, yes.
Superman Annual number 11, folks, is still if it's one of my all-time favorite comic book stories, period. And at the time, I admit, I wasn't that big on Gibbons. He was doing Green Lantern regularly with Len Wein. It was okay. I wasn't big on it. I liked it okay. This was before he drew another book we're going to talk about later. But this is the first time I'd seen him on something I really thought just worked and clicked, of course, with Alan Moore. And, well, you all know this story. We don't even have to go to that too far into it. You probably all know about it. It has been adapted on the Bruce Timm Justice League Unlimited series. To my opinion, I didn't really care for the way they did it. It was okay. But this is a masterpiece right here, in my opinion.
Well, when you have something that great, nothing can ever equal it. But I think that by appearing in the JLA cartoon or the Justice League cartoon, it's a nice homage, kind of like the creator saying, this is such a wonderful story. It has to live way past just the comic book. And a lot of people that didn't know it existed may give it a shot. So that's...
One second. Let's answer Eric real quick. One thing I never understood. If Superman gets his power from the color of our sun, how does he have powers? This has been asked a lot. Travel out ground, under the ground, ocean, all this other kind of stuff. Two examples. One is Glib. It's a comic book. Two, it's a comic book. Number two, he absorbed those rays over many years, and he's like a power battery. Even before Byrne came up with that little silly thing, he did it as well. So that's pretty much it, Eric. But again, the biggest answer is it's a comic book.
The thing is, I don't think they ever said that it was the color, but
not the color.
They always said it was a yellow sun. It was a yellow sun. It was a yellow sun, as opposed to.
Yeah, you're right. So that's what he means. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happens with later writers said, okay, what they mean is that it's a newer sun. So the rays of a newer sun empower Kryptonians. The red, the light of a dying sun, which is a red sun, do not empower Kryptonians. And just like you mentioned, later writers came up with the idea that his cells are like solar cells.
Yes.
Solar radiation. So even when he's on at the bottom of the sea or somewhere out in space, his cells have already absorbed the energy of the sun, and they have stored it.
Thanks for popping in, Jester. We appreciate it.
So that's basically the explanation. But of course, as you well know, the best explanation is it works because it's a comic book.
Yeah, but I understand what Eric's coming from. It's fun to talk about, but it still makes.
every time anybody wants to say something like the science of superheroes, you just have to go, well, you got to understand these characters were created back when science was almost magic.
Well, that's why
a lot of people were not really.
That's why Julius Warts in the 50s decided to, because he was a science fiction guy, not a magic guy, and he went and tried to change a lot of the DC characters in the first big revamp. To more science related, even though it was still silly science. But yeah. Thanks again, Jester. I really appreciate the Jester of Sin. Thank you for being here.
It's like
really appreciate it. Let's see. Eastland says, he says, he thought it was because he was raised as a child under our sun, which gave him strength. Basically, I mean, if you want to look for something like that, yeah.
I remember one time, a long time ago, I was talking to this guy who was he was always trying to be like realistic about superheroes.
Not a good move.
No.
Yeah.
he was trying to be to seem smarter than he was, right? So one day he and I were talking. He goes, Carlos, or Joey, as I'm known here in Mexico. He goes, I talked to a guy who's a bodybuilder and a trainer, and he says that Batman's a body like Batman's cannot be maintained for more than 5 years. And I looked at him, dead serious, and you go, well, the trainer and you are forgetting one very important thing. And he goes, what? I go, Batman is fictional. So he can maintain that body for as long as he wants.
Because he's Batman. Remember our old Batman logic? Remember we used to say when people would say something, we go, hey, he can do that because he's Batman.
And I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying
I know. Eric gets it. Yeah, I mean.
I'm just saying, you cannot apply real life logic or real life science to comic books. They work because they have to work. Just like this story.
This story is
a wonderful story because it tugs at your heartstrings. It destroys you from the inside out. Just as the Black Mercy destroyed Superman and Batman both, because it gives them the one thing they most want.
Their heart's desire.
And then it twists it. Gives you your heart desire and it twists it. And what the Black Mercy, that is a plan that is not created by Mongol, but Mongol cultivates it, makes and throws it at Superman, disguised as a present from an alien race. Mongol is basically the Thanos of DC, if you will.
Yeah, Jim Starlin, not Jim Starlin, but Jim Starlin created him for DC Comics Presents, and he fought Superman a few times, but he wasn't really around that much at that point. Just fairly new.
He appeared in 2 issues of DC Comics Presents. Wonderful stories. Wonderful.
Yeah,
you should read
them. Good stuff. I have.
I'm talking to your audience. It's drawn and written by Jim Starlin. The first 2 are with Mongol as a villain, and the third one is with the Spectre as an antagonist, if you will.
One of the best.
Great stories, wonderful stories. The one I read the first, the second one, I did not know the third one existed. Thank you for telling me. So I got all 3. But as I was saying about this, the Black Mercy makes Superman think that Krypton did not explode. He's married to a woman and has children. And he actually starts seeing that this is all a fantasy, but he does not want the fantasy to end because he's happy, he's content, he has a wife, and he has children.
Yep.
And the moment he has to let go and allow Krypton to die, allow his wife and children to die, so he can go back to the real world and fight Mongol, just seeing Superman break down and cry, it kills you. It's the strongest super being in the universe, and he's crying because he has to say goodbye to his unreal family.
It's brilliant, and it's also, again, without going too far down with it, everyone, a couple of these scenes, finally, for those who've probably seen it or seen the cartoon or read it, Mongol decides to, this is Superman's birthday, anybody who doesn't know, but decides to go ahead and kill the others. And I love that what he says, I'm not very familiar with their customs. Perhaps you'll instruct me on which one of you it is polite to kill first.
Great.
And of course, you know, he's a monster. He's huge. So Wonder Woman knows Batman and Robin don't have a shot against him. So Wonder Woman starts fighting him, and this is a guy that can slug it out with Superman. This iteration.
Yeah.
So she's in over her head, but it's, you know, she's giving him a good go at it. And Batman, who we love, can make a little mistake sometimes. Batman pulls the Black Mercy off of Superman, and it attaches itself right to him.
Yes.
But what I love, one of my favorite scenes in all of comics, is Robin is standing over Batman. This is the Jason Todd Robin, newly minted, and had been around very long. And Superman, when he you know, comes to the realization of what has happened to him, is a little miffed. I think it's fair to say. I'm sure you'd agree. And this page right here, boy, when he says he's a big yellow guy sitting through there hurting Wonder Woman. Superman, are you okay? You look sort of I love it, Mongol, and then he screams Mongol. It is so loud it knocks Robin off his feet. And
this was when Jason Todd was not annoying. This was when he was created.
But
this is great.
He actually does something good in this.
It's a great Superman story.
No problem, Eric. That's cool, man. We appreciate it.
And
we're having a good time, man. You're great, man. Thanks, buddy.
You were within the topic of superheroes and comics. So
it's always there, man. Eric's one of the best.
Not a problem.
If you haven't read this, though, this scene right here, man, look at Gibbons. I mean, this is just beautiful, and this is just one of the best ever, man.
The sad thing is, Jim Starlin used Mongol wonderfully. Alan Moore did the same, and sadly, after the crisis, they reintroduced Mongol, and I don't think they made him such a threat.
They made him a joke, kind of.
I mean, there was a time where the new Brainiac kind of overthrows him and keeps a war world, and I'm like, and then they kill Mongol, and his children take over, and a female Mongol. It's like, such a great villain. You know why? You know, do you have to just destroy him like that? I just did not think they really thought it through.
But but Moore had him right here, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I love this scene when when Superman cuts loose. Happy birthday, Kryptonian! I give you Oblivion. And you know, before this panel, Mongol even says he thought he was going to die. I mean, he thought Superman was about to kill him, but then he thinks he's got him. And look at Alan Moore, maybe the first one ever to do this. Superman using his heat vision in anger. Burn. That's just fucking beautiful.
That is very good.
I love it.
And I know what you mean about Dave Gibbons' art. It's not very flashy, but it's very solid. And that's what you needed for stories like this that are very introspective and sentimental. And also what you needed for something like Watchmen, where you're trying to put heroes within a real life context.
Yeah.
So you need so much a flashy artist, but a solid one.
Absolutely. And again, much to do has been made of the Screw 52 trash, where Superman and Wonder Woman get together and stuff. This is a kind of a cool scene where it's his birthday, and they kiss, and she said, "Why don't we do that more often?" Because I don't know. She says, "I don't know, too predictable." And so you're probably right. Moore is amazing.
The one thing I never thought those two guys would be a good pairing, because I think they need to be with human, with human beings, so for their humanity to grow. If they're two powerful people, you end up with a comic book like Kingdom Come, where they would just try to take over the world. They get into this whole thing where they want to create a utopia, much like Krypton or Themyscira. And I think they need to have to be coupled with human beings. That's just me.
Absolutely. And again, it's a wonderful story. Anyone who has not read this one, I mean, you could look, I love the Bruce Timm Justice League cartoon. But I just didn't like the way they adapted it, because I'm very picky about this story. They changed things here and I did not like, but that's neither here nor there. They did their best because we're moving on to the next one. For those of us who dearly loved Superman for his first 48 years of existence, his golden, his silver, and his Bronze Age character, well, I'm not going to go. We will not. We cannot open this can of worms about whether you like the reboot or not. I don't like the John Byrne reboot. We all know that. We've litigated it. We've talked to my good buddy Mark C about it. Not going there. Don't want that opened up. I'm just saying that in 1986, when they were about to reboot Superman with under the John Byrne stuff, Alan, when that was being bandied about at DC Comics, Alan Moore went to famous editor Julius Schwartz, the Superman editor extraordinaire, and said to him, "If you don't let me do the last Superman story, before the reboot, I will kill you." Jokingly, and to which Julius Schwartz said in the story, not being being accomplice to my own murder, I decided to let him do it. And so Alan Moore said goodbye to the golden, silver, bronze age Superman with the help of the great Kurt Swan, the ultimate Silver Age and Bronze Age Superman artist, George Perez, and others. And what you get here, folks, my God, well, it's called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And in my opinion, this is every bit the masterpiece that for the man who has everything is. If you look at this opening splash page, one of my favorite. It started out on the right foot with me, Carlos, immediately, because after his explanation, he basically says this is an imaginary story, and this says that aren't they all? Aren't they all? Because that used to be a thing in DC, an imaginary story that was always on the covers.
Like the wonderful, quote unquote, Red Superman, Blue Superman.
Right. That was their DC's cop out every time they want to do something crazy. They couldn't just say this is not in canon. That was their way of saying, just after this issue's over, forget about it. We're going to go back to normal. Nothing to see here. So Moore had a little fun with that because yes, aren't they all? This, my God, this is if you love that even if you don't love that Superman, it's a wonderful story, but it does mean more to you if you're saying goodbye to a Superman in a Superman era that you're never going to get back again, and you know it, which is my case.
Yeah. Now, I didn't mind the John Byrne reboot. You and I have discussed this so many times.
Please don't get me agitated. I got a blood pressure problem.
And we've agreed to disagree.
Because it sucks.
I love it. But what we do agree is that, I love it. But what we do agree, it's amazing. But what we do agree, it's
shit. Welcome, smart Steve.
Wonderful. We do have to agree that this two-part story is amazing. The art by Kurt Swan is beautiful. The first issue was inked by George Perez, and I think he and Kurt Swan's pencils wonderful together.
Oh, incredible.
Sadly, the next issue was not inked by Perez, and you can definitely tell the difference. But the story is so good. But if you read the the reprint that they did of these stories,
right?
The art looks a lot better than because the paper was a lot better.
They did better paper.
Right? The printing,
right.
The color was a lot better. So having the original issues, amazing, but having the reprint version is very recommended.
That was Steve with that line there. Without blowing the story too much, there's a scene early on where Toyman and Prankster are basically sending a radio message to Superman after they send him the dead body of Pete Ross, his old childhood friend, and which was pretty horrific. This whole story is very horrific now, and I'll go into that in a second. But Steve puts, they don't know why they're doing what they're doing either. It's explained later, but that great line of Superman just is one of the things I love about him. He basically says, "Toyman Prankster, do you know what radio waves look like?" And then the next thing you know, he's bursting through their wall because I do.
That's really wonderful.
That's so Superman.
This is the other time that you mentioned that Alan Moore was inspired, plagiarized, whatever you want to call it. The story of Super Folks.
This big time Super Folks here. And again, we don't have I didn't put up the cover, everyone, but it's called by Robert Meyer. I believe Robert Meyer or something like that. If you ever want to, I think Meyer. But if you look it up, it's an old book from the late 70s. It's a superhero satire.
But again, he may take a thing here, like a plot point here, a plot point there. But
no, it was Prankster, not Trickster, Steve. Smart Steve. Prankster and Toyman.
Yeah, there was the Prankster. Yes,
Prankster's the Superman one. Trickster's the Flash one.
yes.
Flash
You are correct, sir. You are correct. So the thing is, it was Prankster, it was Toyman, this, that, and they were acting out of character, and later you discover why. The two things that really get to me in these issues, one of them is when he's talking to Perry White, with Superman, right? And he admits full on 100% the love of his life is Lois Lane. He cares a lot for Lana. Lana is his high school sweetheart, but now he's Superman. He's not Superboy. He's not Clark Kent, young kid from Smallville. He's a man, a reporter, in one of the biggest cities in the world. And he is a man now, and as a man, his choice is Lois Lane.
Yeah, and Lana knew it.
I know, but he knows that if he chooses Lois outright, he would break Lana's heart, and he cannot do that. And I just thought that was such an amazing thing. This man faces life and death situations for a living in both of his careers. The man is just this amazing hero, but the one thing that he cannot do is break the heart of the first woman that loved him and that he cared about. So that was wonderful. And again, another wonderful scene. You and I are both lovers of the Legion. We adore the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh my, yeah.
As you can tell. So of course, the Legion makes an appearance with those wonderful original costumes, of course.
Yep.
And they commit the biggest mistake ever. They bring Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, to visit with them. But of course, in this future, Supergirl is dead. And it just kills Superman to see her with such energy, so young, so vibrant. It kills him. And just in the last page of the first issue, Superman is just sitting there, knowing that the end for him and all his loved ones is about to come, because all his villains are acting way out of character. They're way more deadlier than ever before. Superman just sits down and cries, and it destroys you again.
Oh my God, dude! There's so many heartbreaking scenes in this thing.
No bullet can penetrate his skin, but just everything that's happening is just too much for his heart. It's too much. He cannot.
Well, he was pissed at the Legion for doing that, by the way.
I know, but even if he's pissed, he's still Superman, so he can't bring himself to just rage at it. So he just sits down and breaks down.
I want to address something real quick with this story, everyone. This a buddy of mine who we both, and I'm not, please don't start a new conversation with it. I just want to say we both equally hate the Snyder's horrible Man of Steel trash because of how it bastardized the character. Well, when I wrote my big review of this and I talked about this story, I'm not trying to start a Snyder argument. I'm just using this for an example, right? So, and I talked about this story. My friend who agrees with me on the film, he hates this story because of how all the violence and all the destruction of characters. And I said, not being glib about the whole imaginary story thing, I said, dude, I would not like that story either if it were going to be a story just happening in normal continuity and they were going to be continuing, but that was over. So this story was the only closure we were ever going to get with that universe that we were losing because of the John Byrne reboot. Other circumstances, I might with you, but is it a bloodbath? Yes, but it's a brilliantly done bloodbath, and it's an ending, it's a bookend. That's the only reason, and it's beautifully done. But even beautifully done, if it were just being done for the hell of it, I probably would have had some problems with it. But we weren't getting them back.
It's the same with Dark Knight Returns. You know, Batman is acting way too violent, but it's because it's the end of his career. That's the end of Batman and the beginning of a whole new career as a mentor to teach the Sons of the Bat how to, protect the city in a whole. Well, at least that's how it was supposed to be. Now, you and I kind of disagree a little bit on Man of Steel. I'm not saying it's a great movie. I enjoyed it, but the thing is,
he's lying, everyone.
but the thing is, um, this story tells you what happens if Superman ever takes a life. So
yeah, we're gonna absolutely.
That's the problem with Man of Steel. If it was the real Superman,
Stool.
he would do the same
Man
thing
of Stool.
this Superman does after he takes a life. And the thing is,
I did not want to mention it.
It's a little tiny twist.
No, go ahead.
But I'm not gonna reveal it because people should read the story. But it's a little tiny twist that you just don't see coming, and when you see it, you just smile from ear to ear because it's just wonderful. It caught you by surprise, and you're just happy. You're just happy at the end after everything, all the emotional turmoil that Alan Moore does. At the very end, he gives you a little tiny thing to say, everything works out at the end. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story. Beautiful story.
Everyone should. Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone should see this. One should read it. And again, when I titled my rather lengthy review of Man of Steel back in 2013 when I saw it, because when Superman has to do something, has to break his own rule in the story. And again, my friend was bitching about that, right? About what he does to the villain of the story, the antagonist of the story, and what he breaks his own rule, as you know. Without going too far into it, I called the title of my review was Especially Not Superman, because if you see saying right here, he's talking about, yes, I have. I won't go into why because you need to read it, but he says nobody has the right to kill. Don't look at that word. Not you and not Superman. And he says, especially not Superman. Superman, he considers himself to be that rule goes doubly for him, that he's not allowed to kill because Superman should not do it because of his godlike powers. And that's a key here. Alan Moore knew it. And even that dope Christopher Nolan was against the neck snapping scene. They talked him into it, but that's neither here nor there. This is a wonderful story, everyone.
Well,
and
I kind of was into what happened at the end of Man of Steel.
I tell you, we're not going there, dude. It'll take forever.
No. I'm just saying I was kind of into it until I saw what he was doing with Batman versus Superman and Justice League, and I go, oh, okay, no.
Right.
No.
We'll do whole shows on that anytime anybody wants, but
no.
So we've gone with we've chronicled Alan Moore's history with Superman. While still at DC, he did another comic. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Okay.
Starts with a W.
Oh,
but Wally. Oh, let's just put the picture up. What the hell?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, you got a picture for me?
Well, and just this is of course not the one that you have, which is beautiful, which is the hardcover with it has a few
original hardcover. They've done plenty since then. Yeah.
Well, you have the original hardcover that also has the notes by Alan Moore, the original drawings by Dave Gibbons.
They put that in the Absolute Division later. Yeah.
It has a few of the pages of the original script.
Yeah, so the Carlton stuff and all that stuff. Yeah.
I do not know why you ever let that get out of your house and give it to me so that I could read it. I do not know why you allowed that to happen, but I thank you.
You're my friend, bro. You're worth it.
Wonderful. It was wonderful.
I burned it since then, now, by the way.
Of course. But the thing is,
I have not.
The one thing I have to recommend to everyone who is an Alan Moore fan, you should read his original scripts. It just so much description of what the world is like. But the thing is, the descriptions are so interesting, you get caught up in them. Like, if you remember, there's a scene in the very beginning of Watchmen, right? where there's the first panel, if you will. There's just this bunch of blood, right?
The cover of number 1 is the first panel, but yeah.
Right. But there's a bunch of blood, right? And you see
Yep.
and you see whatchamacallit, the little button. And the thing is, he was describing in this original page of his original script, he was describing what garbage would be around the blood and the whatchamacallit and the button. And he goes, I imagine there would be this candy called Meltdowns, which is kind of like M&Ms, but you would put it in your mouth, and there would be like after it melts, there would be like juice inside it, and it would be Meltdowns because we're trying to talk about how people are so aware of the nuclear holocaust that could come. And it starts describing the candy that would be in this universe, and you go, oh my God. This guy was thinking way out of the box. So it just, those kind of things is the stuff that you appreciate, because it's not just a book, it's an experience. It's not just a story, it's just a whole, you can read it 10, 15 times and always find something new. Something that you didn't look at, that you didn't stop to see. Sometimes even like just a pause can give you something, something new. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book. I adore it.
Yeah.
I love it. I've read it a bunch of times. It is one of my favorite comic books of all time. It's, sometimes they ask you, what's your favorite movie? And sometimes you go, well, I like this one. And some other times you go, I like this one a lot, but this one I also like. But, to me, what is your favorite comic book? Boom. Watchmen. Who's your favorite superhero? Batman. What's your favorite comic book? Watchmen. I feel that it matured me as a comic book reader. It's kind of like the same feeling I have about The Godfather. I used to like a lot of really stupid movies before I watched The Godfather. When I watched The Godfather, I'm like, my God, I should be watching more movies like this and stop watching so many movies like Rambo and Commando, which I enjoy. But the pleasure that you get from like an action, like an 80s action movie, it's a quick fix. But when you watch something like The Godfather, it's this beautiful rush that you get, and every time you watch it, you get that same rush again. The same thing with comic books. There were a lot of really stupid comic books back in the 80s, and I would read them all, and I would enjoy them. But when I read Watchmen, I go, I gotta be asking a little bit more of myself, And
Love it.
And the thing, and just as wonderful as Watchmen was, I kind of got the same thing when I bought Miracle Man.
We're getting there. Don't worry.
No,
we're
but
getting there.
just one quick thing about that.
We're almost there, man.
I read Watchmen. I read Saga the Swamp Thing, and they were both wonderful. But I never had read Miracle Man. And the thing is, one day I went to the store and they had the first trade paperback and the second one, and I just bought them because it had Alan. Just like you said, he became such a superstar. You would see the name Alan Moore and you would just buy it automatically. So I bought them and I go, I don't know if I'm gonna like them. This was before Swamp Thing. What if he wasn't that good? What is this as lame as just the name Miracle Man? It didn't sing to me. Read the first page, I go, okay.
Well, look, and we're
loved it.
We could go there now, but let's see. We're gonna take a left turn first, and we're gonna go to that will be next. But at the time, I'm trying to say relatively chronological. It's not going to work out 100% like that. But before we get to Miracle Man, we'll get there, bud. And we'll get off Watchmen now because everyone knows. But look, I love it. No secret about it. I do think, looking back, did it and many other things cause a lot of trouble, but it doesn't take away from how wonderful, how brilliant the work is. And I'll always love it. Well, you know, my Watchmen collection. So me going on about Watchmen, that's, you already know. It's an old story to you. And you covered it very nicely. I love this comic very much. And again, it's been in print for so long. There've been movies, and there have been unbelievably horrible versions of them later that don't count. But we don't have to go spend a lot of time on it anymore because everyone knows about it. It's easily his most popular work, let's say. So let's go to something that is. Let's go back to the obscure.
And
for a second,
you mentioned Zack Snyder before. He also did a movie, an adaptation of this work. And all I can say about that is, Alan Moore said it. You cannot adapt Watchmen. Period.
Yeah, then Snyder proved it. Carlos, you should watch the YouTube channel Every Frame a Painting. That sounds familiar, Steve.
It's I've watched a few of those videos. It's very good.
Okay,
very
good. Cool.
It just they analyze like scenes or shots of movies. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
We're gonna go super obscure here because and when it comes to Alan Moore's work is anything but. Everyone knows about it. This one, I don't know who is even going to know about it other than me and you. In the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lawsuit that Harlan Ellison was suing. He and the Comics Journal were being sued in tandem by Michael Fleischer. And there was a benefit book out there to help in the lawsuit. It's called Anything Goes. This was issue number 2. And Alan Moore wrote a little short story with the artist, Megaton Man artist Donald Simpson doing the art. As you can see, the great, Frank Miller did a cover. The great Jack Kirby Joe Sinnott contributed. You had contributors like Sam Keith and Art Spiegelman. This story is called Pictopia. I'm glad you have that, man. You got them all at your fingertips, man. That's
the thing is,
done.
I have the Extraordinary Works of Alan Moore, and they do a reprint.
I did not know they reprinted that. Oh, wow!
They reprinted in Pictopia with like.
I gotta get that
in big, huge. What you want to call it? Format, in like magazine. Like I said, I'll have to get that.
This short story, my friends, is one of my favorite Alan Moore works ever. Certainly one of my favorite of his short stories. In simple terms, at the time, this is the comics of the 80s and the comic book medium in general. Alan Moore, this was before Alan Moore hated comics. However, Pictopia, Pictopia, Smart Steve? Good, I'm glad someone else knows it. This is very rare. I mean, not many people know of it. But in this story, basically, you have a character, sort of like a Mandrake type of a character. This is a Pictopia. This is a world of comic book people. This is where all the comic book characters you love and live in this weird fantasy world. Alan Moore, I mean, it's so preposterous, but you just buy into it immediately because of the way he writes it. And this guy basically, and I didn't put a lot of panels because it's a short story, and I think people should try to find it and read it if they can. But this story, in just a few short pages, Alan Moore beautifully, brilliantly laments the decline of the medium. Boy, if he were still sane, what would he write today about it? Because as bad as it is now. But at the time, I think he was kind of lamenting that, and of course, maybe a little hypocritical because he wrote a lot of dark stuff, but he was lamenting the really kind of ugliness that had been overtaking comics. I guess this was prescient on his part because he was predicting how all the dark stuff was going to happen, and yet he was writing it at the same time. But be that as it may, that's what the story is about. Again, we'll let Carlos elaborate if he would like.
Yeah, I would.
But this thing is beautiful. It's a beautiful story.
Did not know this story existed. You, of course, again said, "Oh, by the way, have you read in Pictopia?" I'm like, "In Pic what?" And then you told me where it was. I went to see it. Thankfully, there was one copy available. I bought it immediately, of course. And then I went home, and again, it happened the same thing that happened with Miracle Man. I said, am I going to enjoy this? Is this going to be any good? And then I kind of put it off. And then I finally said, okay, it's very few pages. I'm going to, give it a shot. So I'm reading it, and it's so wonderful because just like you mentioned, there's a character who's kind of like Mandrake. So it's a bunch of characters that like Mandrake or Plastic Man, but they have different names, but you understand what they represent. They represent the newspaper strips. They represent the old, more funny characters like Plastic Man and stuff like that. And you see how when they hit the 80s, people start changing. And the thing is, like, back then, when I was reading comic books, I enjoyed seeing them update the characters. Like we mentioned, what's his face, Grant Morrison and on Animal Man. He took a character that nobody knew about or nobody cared about anymore, and he updated the character. He made the character readable again, or readable for the first time. And there were a lot of writers updating characters. Denny O'Neil did the same thing with The Question. It was wonderful. It's a wonderful book.
It was a great series. Yeah.
Of course, when you have really good writers doing that with certain characters that nobody cared about, like The Question or Animal Man or Changing Man, it was interesting. But then there were other writers that were just not as talented. And after seeing what Frank Miller did with Daredevil, what Frank Miller did with Batman, what Alan Moore did with Swamp Thing and Miracle Man, they decided that the way to go was to give all these characters all this horrible backstory, or this traumatic life before they became heroes, or a traumatic love life, or kill the woman they love, and stuff like that. So they were going just for the superficial changes instead of the really more profound changes. And what Pictopia shows is that there's this wave of blackness coming towards this wonderful world. It will engulf that all, and it will change it into something horrible, into something that nobody wants to be around anymore. Now, right after this comic book came out, a little later, it was 1985, and it was time to celebrate the 50th anniversary of DC Comics. So they decided that, yes, a wave of blackness will destroy the world. And what we were left with was a more serious...
A wall of antimatter.
Yes.
Pretty much what this is.
This
was a commentary on Crisis. It was a commentary on Crisis on Infinite Earths, just wiping out characters willy-nilly. Bruce Busiek did it brilliantly as well. Yeah.
But as much as things changed in 1986 when the DC world was rebooted, you still had things that were very heroic. The update of Wonder Woman by George Perez was very good. The update by Denny O'Neil of The Question was wonderful. What Len Wein did with Blue Beetle was very beautiful. What they did with Captain Atom, yes, it was more realistic. It was a lot of conspiracy theories, stuff like that. But again, it was very heroic, because even though the character is always being manipulated by the U.S. government, he always tries to be a hero and help his fellow man. But a few years later, around 1992, Image Comics came out, and it, to me, just destroyed comic books for a very long time, because there were such successful comic books, even though they were horrible for the most part, if not for all of them.
Oh, we'll be talking a little bit about that later, actually.
Marvel and DC decided to imitate the Image way of doing things, and a lot of comic books just became
right.
Spider-Man was always about hope, and then when the Clone Saga came out, it was horrible. And then with the X-Men and Onslaught, it was ridiculous. Then with the Heroes Reborn stuff with the Avengers and Fantastic Four, and it was trying to tell new stories in a new way. The Captain America by Rob Liefeld, it was just horrible.
Yeah.
Every time I remember 70s and 80s comic books, I smile. This huge smile, these great comic books that may have not changed the world, but they gave me just hours and hours of just joy. And then somewhere in the 90s, I would read books, and it was, oh my God, it was a chore to get through them. You know, they were just, X-Force was horrible. The X-Men, you cannot understand what was going on in the 90s with the X-Men. It was just, there was no way. You know, and there were, of course, a few nice books like the New Warriors. That was a fun book. You know, some of the Guardians of the Galaxy by Jim Valentino.
Well,
Fun book.
Yep. All right.
Just
Well,
not
yeah.
a lot.
Well, Steve liked Image, and there's some books I did like later. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on Image, but Steve disagrees.
I don't know, man.
Well, let's stay on Alan Moore though.
So sort of enjoy Savage Dragon, but I mean Wildcats and Spawn. Oh my God.
Well,
we're finally not my cup of tea. And Impactopia, to me, showed what was going to happen back in the 90s, and only that. Much later, when Alan Moore was writing for Image, he came up with this book, which is
we're going to get there. Again, you keep jumping the gun, man. We're going there. Don't worry about it.
To me, it's a spiritual sequel to Impactopia.
We're going to get. Oh yeah, we're going to get there. But first, we've got to finally go to the Miracle Man, because we were on Marvel Man earlier, as I informed everyone earlier. Warrior magazine, that was, as we talked about earlier, Marvel Man. His little story got a little bit cut short when when Warrior, by Quality at the time, the UK mag, got canceled. So Eclipse Comics at the time decided to bring Marvel Man over here, reprint the series that was already gone, recolor it because it was a black and white series. Color the series. It was originally by Gary Leach, later by Alan Davis, doing the art, all written by Moore. But there was one little bitty snag, as you can all see. Marvel Comics was not about to let them call anybody Marvel Man. They'd forgotten that in issue number 3 of the Fantastic Four, they had a villain called Miracle Man, but that's beside the point. So, hence the change. Miracle Man number 1 here, as you can see. And I had read them in Warrior, and was really frustrated that we didn't get to see what happened. And they start from scratch at number 1. And so we had to wait like 7 issues before they got to where they were continuing the story, the original story that they left us hanging on. And, but what's that? Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Brian Barlow's art on Animal Man was it was, but he only did the covers, Steve. But they were fantastic covers. So anyway, we get this, and the first 7, 8 issues or so are reprinting the Warrior stuff. Then they took every issue, dude. Every freaking issue took forever. That's why I saved this till later, because by the time it became new stories, it was well into 1987 or 86, 87. And so Eclipse, Moore took forever. He was working on Watchmen. He was working on, a lot of things, right? So eventually, now I'm not gonna show any pages from the comic I'm about to show you all, and not to go too far in it, because you can find these everywhere. They're reprinted everywhere now. You just won't see Alan Moore's name on them, and you should really pick these up. These are great comics, but they are brutal. And I'm going to show you a cover to a comic book that, in my opinion, is the most disturbing comic book ever made. And because you can make a sick, disgusting comic book, don't get me wrong, that might be more disgusting or ugly or repugnant, but you can't make one that's all those things and yet brilliant and creative as well. But Alan Moore did it with Miracle Man number 15, of course. John Totalben and Steve Bissett doing the art. I don't even want to mention what's inside this thing. I was again, here I go again, talking about I own the comic shop, but I'm doing it because at the time I was own my comic shop when this finally came out, and then between 14 and 15 had been almost a year, dude. I don't know if you remember that, but you weren't at the.
I got into it so later.
Okay.
It killed me. It killed me that this beautiful thing was coming out, and I was just ignoring it in the racks.
Let's see, Steve's in.
Kills me.
Okay, it was 7. There you go. All right, good. Thank you. And then, yeah, after about 7 or so, they finished the original story, which again, it was the art was. I mean, excuse me, story was really good. The art by Chuck Austin, I was not all that super fond of personally, but we finally got an ending to the first story. So they started a second story, new story in these Eclipse books with Miracle Man, and again. You got to read it.
Yes.
All I'm going to say is this story right here.
You have to see it.
You have to see it, and I'm not going to put pages. I didn't put pages up front because you just can't. You can't do it.
The images are just.
The image is too disgusting. I mean, we might get taken off of YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, because have we seen more gross things? I would challenge you may not have, but it's not just that they're gross or violent, which they are. They're happening in a superhero context. You're seeing the ugliest possible scenario of somebody with Superman or Captain Marvel type powers who is completely and utterly not only evil, gleefully evil on a Joker level. Is he insane like the Joker? Kinda. But he basically has that much regard for life, which is none. In fact, he basically thrives on carnage. He loves carnage, and you've never seen more carnage in a comic book. In a good comic book than this. Maybe this is more disgusting stuff out there, but in a brilliant comic that you want to read because it's been so good, and you look at this and you just cannot. It's sickening and disturbing, and I mean that as a compliment because you could write something that disgusting and still be brilliant and make me love it. Yeah, if you know where I'm coming from. Now you can take the floor, sir, if you'd like.
Well, the thing that I have to say about this is the next thing. A lot of stuff, especially in Image, not trying to start any fights, but just especially in Image, there was a lot of gross out stuff. There was a lot of violence, especially in Spawn, a lot of blood, a lot of guts, a lot of gore. But I thought that was all kind of like just in a morbid fascination to pander to the lowest common denominator. Here, there is a reason. There's a man who has the power of a god, and he has abused his power for very long. He loses that power, and he gets trapped within a young boy. And for very long, he's not allowed to use the extreme of his powers, right? And then, in a moment of desperation, this young boy lets his evil side free. After being cooped up for so many months inside a helpless body, without being able to use or abuse his powers, this man has gone insane. And it's an insane god. And he takes his revenge out on everyone. So everything that happens within this comic book makes sense. It's not just to pander to the lowest common denominator. It's not just gross out for gross out's sake. It's not gore just for gore's sake. It's not really bad.
It's to make a point. Yeah, it's making a point.
It's not like a really bad Saw movie that it's just gore. It's a gore fest for the hell of it.
It's making a very good point.
Reason. Right. So the moment the hero of the story appears and sees what is happening, he's mortified, just like we are mortified. And he makes a choice, a horrible choice, that he has to make to keep the world safe. You know, there's this always what if scenario that people comment about. If you were able to go back in time and see a baby Hitler before he committed any of his atrocities, would you kill him? Would you kill an innocent child to keep the world safe? And a lot of people say yes, a lot of people say no, because it's a really hard question. After what happens in this comic book, Miracle Man, Mike Moran, has to answer that question. Would you kill an innocent person to keep the world safe? That's all I'm going to say. You got to read it.
You got to read it. I mean, it's disturbing stuff, but if you could handle it, this one, again, it almost gave me nightmares. And I mean, it was just uncomfortable. And we waited for almost a year and it was worth it because it's one of the most brilliant things I've ever read. But not too long after that, there was maybe one more issue, then he left, and but yeah, he said his piece on it. Another series that continued over from Warrior, unfinished from Warrior, was picked up by DC Comics, and it was close to finished, but not quite. There were a few segments of the story that was undone. So DC did the same thing pretty much that Eclipse did. They reprinted the Warrior stuff in order, and then they started printing the comic book in the comic book format. What happened? Are we still being heard, everyone? I don't know. I got nothing. I got no avatars. I got nothing. What's going on with the StreamYards here? You there, man?
Yeah, I get kicked out for a second there.
Happens to these StreamYards sometimes, buddy. Thank you. So this, again, the early issues were reprints of the Warrior stuff, were colored. And then by around issue, I believe, 8 or 9, somewhere up in there. It was all trade. It's all in trade paperback now, anyway. But I had the regular issues, and then it was so frustrating having to wait. After you'd read them all before, and then you read them again, and you're like, But they finished the story up in a 10-issue, limited series that has been compiled in graphic novels form. I hate that term, trade paperback, many times, and of course, you all are familiar with the film, so we don't have to go too far into it. It's a fairly popular film. I thought the film was kind of a okay popcorn type of film. There's a little depth here and there, but compared to the comic, it's pretty shallow. I like it.
You mean the movie?
The movie, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, as adaptations go.
Thanks, Eric.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
and I think what really elevates it, like in the case of Watchmen, is they do try to do a true adaptation. They change a few things, but I just have to commend the acting. Just
Hugo
every
Weaving
actor
is genius.
Hugo Weaving says, "Okay, I do not have a face. I do not have eyes. How am I gonna show Lois?" And it's acting, and it's wonderful voice acting. What's her face? Natalie Portman does a wonderful job.
Yeah.
The guy who plays the detective, forget his name. Wonderful actor. He was in The Crying Game. He was in the Vampire Chronicles, Interview with the Vampire. He's a really wonderful actor, and here he was amazing, and just the acting is so pitch perfect. I think the adaptation works, but of course, like with everything, if you like the movie, great, but nothing can top the book. The book is just so much more. It's so much more
to it. Yeah, the movie's good. Yes. I like it, and I probably only saw it the one time at the theater. And again, nothing against it; it's good stuff. But I mean, if you really want to get into the meat of the story, and so yeah, check that out. It's perpetually in reprint form in stores everywhere. And yes, he also did a great job of He was Red Skull. She was Jane Foster. That's true. That's true, Smart Steve.
And the thing now this. Again, I didn't know if I should get it, but I said it has Alan Moore's name. There's no reason not to get it, so I got it. I loved it. Boom. That's it. That's all I can say. And I remember reading an interview with Alan Moore where he got his inspiration, and I thought it was pretty funny.
Thanks, Eric. Eric Finch plays the detective.
Right? No, the actor. His name is Eric Finch. I don't think so.
I don't know.
That's what Eric said. Well, let me check right now on.
It's not a big deal. But thanks, Eric.
The guy.
Because
let's see. It's Stephen Ray. That's the guy's name.
Stephen Ray. Okay, maybe Eric Finch plays someone else.
Yes.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah, there's of course Stephen Fry is in the movie again. He was wonderful.
I love Stephen Fry. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Constantine was there. Yeah. There you go. I remember that now. Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Great actor.
Well, you ready for the big 400-pound?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the big 400-pound gorilla?
But wait, before we go, just want to say that one of the inspirations that Alan Moore mentions for V for Vendetta, and I thought it was wonderful, is he goes, I've noticed that in our folklore, in our English folklore, what we always have is the outlaw being cast as a hero. And he references Robin Hood. To the lawman, to the crown, he's an outlaw, but to the people, he's a hero. And it's the same thing with V. To the powers that be, he's the villain, but to the people, he's a hero. And that's kind of funny because I think that resonated a lot here in Mexico, because here in Mexico, we always have had a folklore of outlaw heroes like Pancho Villa. He was considered an outlaw, but he's hero to many. The same thing with Zapata. He was a villain he was an outlaw to many, but at least to the government and to the people in charge. But he was a hero to the people. That's a thing that the English and the Mexicans have in common. We always, have outlaw heroes. But there you go. Go ahead.
Well, if you're ready for the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, let's do this. All right, everyone. Batman: The Killing Joke. I believe you've all heard of it. 1988. I was running my it was my first week I opened my aforementioned often mentioned comic book shop. This was there. This came out that very week. This, of course, this is the first printing because you know it by the green lettering. At the time, of course, it's a great Brian Boland cover and has wonderful Brian Boland art. At the time, I was very excited about this book. I really, really like it. Don't mention Interview with a Vampire. Too late. You already did. Don't mention it again.
Okay. It's very vague.
But yeah, this was not is it an okay? It's a good comic, and just as a comic goes. But I tend to agree with even more who retroactively doesn't like it. Even before he went nuts, he regretted a lot of it. I agree that it wasn't necessarily a good move to do this because it got really, really abused by DC later. By what they did. Look, it's a comic. You could have just said Barbara Gordon got better. I mean, it's a comic book. Well, what it did to her, I know people like Oracle. I'm not trashing that.
According to Alan Moore. From what I've read, he wanted to work with Brian Boland. He goes, Brian, what would you like to do? And he goes, I want to do a Joker story.
Right,
that
Eric?
was it. That was
Say
it.
Again? Let's do it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that origin's been mined a lot as well.
Well, but the thing is,
bit.
I read this book because it had Batman on the cover, not because it had a Joker. I'm not a fan of the Joker because I'm not a fan of bad guys. But it said Batman. It had a Joker, so I said, "Oh, it's Batman versus the Joker." So I got it. It was much later that I became an Alan Moore fan, and no wonder I like that book so much. But I love it. I think it's a wonderful book. Alan Moore has stated that he goes, "I do not understand why Barbara Gordon is not walking anymore. This is a world where there's a Martian Manhunter and a man from Krypton. They should be able to cure her." So he never meant for it to be a permanent change on the character.
No, he didn't.
I think it was a wonderful change in the character to me, because what happens is when you have a character like Batman and you have very many imitators, it kind of loses a little bit of its luster. So the thing is, you had a Robin, you had a Nightwing, you had a Batgirl, you had a Batwoman. You have way too many bad characters or a bad squad around Batman. And I think Batman should have a Robin, and that's it. If he has too many characters around, he stops being this kind of dark loner with only one ray of sunshine. In this case, the one that represents hope, which is Robin. So I did not mind them, not using Batgirl anymore. And what they did with her becoming Oracle and being her using her smarts, I thought it was amazing. What Chuck Dixon did with her and Black Canary in Birds of Prey, I thought it was wonderful. And we're not talking about the movie, which is just crap. So the book by Chuck Dixon was really great. So I did not mind what happened to her. I also don't think the Joker raped her. I think he took pictures of her while she was, bloodied and naked on the floor. That I think. But the one thing that I do love about this comic book is that everything boils down to one bad day and what happens to you when that bad day comes. It came to Batman and it forged a hero. It came to the Joker and it forged the greatest villain in DC history. So I think that it really reflects what you are underneath. When that bad day comes, the action that you take reflects what kind of person you are. In the case of the Joker, he may have been a normal human being. When that bad day comes, the evil that's boiling inside of him, the rage against a society that did not understand him, came out. When it came to Bruce Wayne, it forged the greatest hero ever. And the same, and what Commissioner Gordon shows, that when that bad day came to him, his sanity took over because he knew one thing above everything: the law works. And he tells Batman, do not kill him, bring him in clean, because he has to pay for his crimes.
By the book, he tells him.
Which is by the book, which is why I think what's his face, Grant Morrison, is completely wrong.
Batman Morrison says, look, people, he does not kill him. Morrison says he kills him. Look at this page here. Morrison hates. They hate. Morrison hate each other.
Yes.
Yeah, he did not kill the Joker.
Did not kill, but the thing is, Morrison has this. He speaks, and a lot of dumb people listen. He does not kill the Joker because his friend, his confidant, tells him not to kill him. The brother he never had. That's if you don't count Thomas Wayne Jr. The brother he never had, Jim Gordon, tells him, bring him in by the book. He has to pay for his crimes. Batman will not disobey his friend. What the Joker does, he does against Jim Gordon. He does not do against Batman. He does against Jim Gordon. Batman will obey what his friend says. He will listen to his friend. He will listen to the sanity of his friend. He does not kill the Joker. He brings him in. They do share a moment of levity because they understand finally that they are involved in a never-ending battle where one of them is fated to kill the other, which is exactly what happens in Dark Knight Returns. They fight. Batman is almost about to kill him. He steps back and he commits suicide because that's how much of a coward the Joker is. But they just share a joke. They share a moment of levity. They understand each other's madness. But they understand one thing above all. One is pure evil and one is pure good. And Batman will never cross that line. The moment he crosses it, he cannot be Batman. Period.
Right. There you go. Well, the modern idiot writers don't know that, but
And Zack Snyder does not know that because
he doesn't either.
Batman versus Superman is just the worst. I hated that
even Nolan, whom I don't like that much, in The Dark Knight Retires, horrible movie, but how he does say it. Remember when he tells Catwoman, "We don't kill."
Yes.
He refuses even
in that
movie. Yeah, I mean, he's not really Batman because of how bad that movie is. And in Dark Knight, he doesn't kill the Joker.
No.
So, let's see here.
He can't. And it's so much fun in Dark Knight Rises when he slaps the gun of Catwoman's hand. He goes, "We do not use guns," and she goes, "You're no fun." That's a wonderful story.
But yeah, absolutely. But anyway, yeah.
Batman doesn't kill the Joker in the Dark Knight. Doesn't kill anybody. And in Dark Knight Rises, Talia dies, but it's because of her.
Right. Well, but
and with Ra's al Ghul, he says, "I don't have to. I'm not going to kill you. I don't have to save you." Plus, we all know. Well, the thing is, Ra's al Ghul, he does not die. He uses the Lazarus pit.
Yeah, he knows he won't die. Exactly. Period. So anyway, this is a controversial comic, and two things can be true at the same time. I could say that maybe it had a bad effect on a lot of things. More certainly believe so, but it's still a good comic. It's wonderful art by Bolin, and it's a good story. It's a good. And at the time, we were really excited about it. I remember I got in a debate at a con with Richard Pini, the one of the guys who does the author or producers of the comic ElfQuest, the famous comic from the 70s and 80s. We argued back and forth about it, and the comic industry was abuzz about this thing, but it became sort of a lightning rod later. And that terrible animated adaptation of it is a piece of dribble, piece of shit.
I mean,
terrible.
Nothing in the world is as bad as that. I
went to the theater to see it, dude. That's how dumb I am.
I was in the San Diego Comic-Con when they showed that movie. I could not believe that thing exists. I just could not believe it. And the worst thing is, they were gonna give away 5 copies.
That thing sucks, man. It's so bad. Very well said, Steve.
They were gonna give 5 copies away of the hardcover.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight hardcover for the 5 people who asked the best question. And I said, okay, I can get up there and say what I really feel about this movie, or I can try to win a Killing Joke hardcover. So of course, I sold my soul for a hardcover.
Yeah,
and I did not say what I meant, but
that's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
But a guy that was there was so mad. He yelled something that I can't yell right now, but he yelled something at the writers, and they got really mad, and they ended the question and answer there because Brian Azzarello was almost about to get off the stage and go beat the guy up. But the guy was right. I mean, they mischaracterized Batgirl completely.
Yeah, it was terrible. Right, Mark would see that's exactly right. Terrible.
And anything that they do in that movie with Batgirl, it's horrible. And Batman and Batgirl having sex on a rooftop while still in their costumes is like, no, Batman would never do that. Not to the daughter of his best friend. I just don't see him doing that. There's no good reason for that. I understand Barbara is initially attracted to Batman, which is why she dresses up as Batgirl. But Batman would never do that because Batman never lets his feelings, especially his sexual desires, take over. The only person that can make him lose control like that is Catwoman and Talia, if you will. Those are the only 2 women he has no control over. But Batgirl, he never. Well, in the animated series, eventually they have a little twist, but that was not the way it happened in that movie. That movie's horrible, and the animation, it's horrible animation. It's just bad,
garbage.
And the thing is, they've done really good animation. In those Batman animated movies, well, in the DC animated movies, they've run the gamut, but the worst animation was Killing Joke. Well, it's so sad.
Well, we're about to jump into the 90s a little bit, and yes, I'm going to omit a few things incidentally, and please, we're not going to start a conversation about it. I'm just going to mention them real quick. Yes, okay. Moore did other things. He did Big Numbers. He did Dalgota, which was an okay book, but he also did a book called The Hypothetical Lizard. It was a short story. He did in a book. He did Lost Girls, which I'm not going to talk about. It's just filth to me. Yeah, and he did. I'm not going there with it. Please don't even go there.
I read Lost Girls, and I go,
it's filth. Yeah, we're not going to go there. Personally, a lot of people like. Well, a lot of people like From Hell. It's not my bag. It's okay for other people to like it, and they made a film and everything, by the way. But won't really go there with that either because it's just not. But From Hell.
Oh yeah, I like From Hell.
It's okay, but again, we're not going to go too much in that one because again, we missed a lot of time early on. I want to do some of the top stuff, but I'll just set the next one up, everyone. We're going to go into the 80s. because Alan Moore, love him or hate him, at that time, he was really becoming distressed with what they were doing with comics, with what Watchmen, Miller's Dark Knight, his Killing Joke, his Miracle Man, other things were spawning what's the old joke? The grim and the gritty, as they say. Alan Moore was thinking that comics, on the whole, was really taking a very dark turn. He didn't like that. It concerned him. Whereas Miller didn't care. Well, Moore did, and Moore went over to Image, and he did a little mea culpa comic books because he thought, look, I've done all these dark comics, and he grew up loving comics. He grew up, and he particularly loved the Marvel stuff by Lee and Kirby and Lee and Ditko and all those wonderful things in the early 60s, the wonderful Marvel Renaissance. And he thought comics should be a little fun too. Why not? They used to be fun. And so he gave us this wonderful thing right here. 1963. Well, you don't have to say much about it. Look at it. Another thing, he's done so many things. He's started so many trends. This is another trendsetter because the retro comic, this was it. This is the first one. This is the prototype, the gold standard for the retro comic in a darker age, looking back, because you've seen it a lot lately. I mean, lately or later, I should say. Sorry. You've seen the retro comics later that harken back to a more innocent, fun age, and it's always cool to see that. He did it in the Alan Moore way. He took out, there's no darkness. There's a lot of sly humor. The ads have a lot of really great, hilarious satirical humor in them. He has a lot of satirical ads, if you might remember. But he just gave us such a fun throwback to those old comics, but they have that Alan Moore tinge to them as well.
If I can just say two things that really break my heart about this book. One is it's very hard to recommend it to people that don't know a lot about comic books.
Yeah, because it doesn't end.
Well, not only that, but you have to be a very knowledgeable about comic books to understand all the riffs they're doing on the old Marvel comics, the 1960s Marvel comics, all the riffs about Stan Lee, because he really tears into Stan Lee, all the stuff about the just the characters, and to understand that Mystery Incorporated is basically the Fantastic Four, and so on and so forth. And also the saddest thing, and again, the one reason it's hard to recommend, or you can't recommend it, is you have the beginning of the story. You have the initial
6 issues
of the story, and then there's no ending, and you go, what? Come on, I want to know what happens.
Right.
You set up this world, you set up these heroes, and even one of them gets kidnapped, and you just don't know what happens, and it just kills you.
There was supposed to be a 1963 annual in which these 1963 knockoff type characters that Moore and Rick Beach had created were going to team up with the already established Imageverse characters, and it was supposed to be, Jim Lee was supposed to support, was going to be working on it with him and others, and it was going to have Moore's first time, dealing with all those characters well in that big old 1963 annual that we will never see in our lifetimes. And it is sad. What you're saying is absolutely right. I still love it. I still love these issues, but it is just one of those many, many tragedies when something that you loved got canceled, cut short, especially when they leave you hanging. But it's still a wonderful book. A wonderful comic. The 6 issues that exist, anyway, and they're not easy to find. By the way, because of a lot of legal entanglements, folks, it'll never be reprinted in a trade paperback or a hardcover. It's not going to happen. You got to track down the staple backs of this one. Unfortunately.
Yeah. So sad. Oh well. What can you do?
But I love it. And so then everyone Moore kind of just he left DC in a huff. He didn't like him. He went over to and I didn't put a lot of the pictures from some of that stuff. He went over to Image, and he did stuff. Quite frankly, I didn't really care much for a lot of his Image stuff, like his Violator and Spawn with little Spawn guest shots and different things like that. And at that point, for a while, I'm like, oh, has he lost it? You know, he did stuff like this. Violator, it's just not my bag. I mean, I know people look, you like Image, fine. Just kind of stuff. I didn't like these comics. I didn't like the way they looked. Didn't like anything about them. But then
I like the Bart Sears art, and I like what they did with Violator because he was not a very interesting character, at least not to me. But I think, you know, he was able to do certain things with a very limited character. What I like that he did in that section of the Image universe was Spawn versus Wildcats, 4 issues, wonderful. It's one of my favorite Alan Moore stories in Image before he does Supreme, and also he did an issue of Spawn where one of the characters was like a pedophile killer, goes to hell. That was a wonderful story as well. And his issues of Wildcat, believe it or not, I actually enjoy those. But of course, Youngblood is perfection.
he did Youngblood was okay, and Wildcats. He did some good Wildcats and stuff. I just didn't care for the Spawn. I'm the guy that doesn't like Spawn out there, folks. Sorry. So I didn't care some of that. But then yes, he did some good stuff. Again, not super Alan Moore level, but he did some of those. And we're gonna go to the big kahuna in a little bit, but let's knock off some of the small, well, not small fry, but some of his Image stuff. As you mentioned, Judgment Day. This was
wonderful.
This was more really getting back into his game. This again, it's a bunch of characters I don't care about. Moore made me care about them. He took care. I did not like our buddy Smart Steve there said he liked Image. Cool, a lot of people did. You know, definitely. I'm in the minority. I didn't like him. I wasn't a big fan of him. My comics tastes were changing at that time. Changing. Excuse me. My favorite stuff at that time was the early Valiant stuff, for example. But I didn't like Image. I didn't like these characters. But you know, when Alan Moore's going to be writing them, you can bet I'm going to give them a shot. And I did. And I liked, again, like Carlos mentioned, I liked this Youngblood that he did. I liked some of his Wildcats and stuff like that. But when he takes this big, gigantic, I guess it's for lack of a better term, crossover series for these Image characters, takes a bunch of characters that I don't care about, and it kind of goes to that what Moore once said in an interview. I believe he said he thinks there are no bad characters; they're just bad writers, which he's proven time and again.
And in Image, there were a lot of bad writers.
Yeah, and he's proven again and again he could take a character that may not be somebody you like, a character you don't care much for, that's not very good, and he could make them good. He could put them in a good story. And this is a wonderful book. Before we get to the big guy, you could talk about this one a little bit.
Well, the one thing that I really enjoy about this comic book is that the art is so bad in some of the chapters.
True.
You want to give up. But the great thing about Alan Moore is that his poetry, if you want to call it that, his storytelling is so wonderful. It transcends bad art.
Sure does.
You know. And I was lucky, unlike you. Well, lucky, unlucky, whatever you want to call it. Like you, I read a few of those horrible books, and I knew a few of those horrible characters. Like I knew the characters from Youngblood, because when Youngblood came out, I thought it was going to be a fun book by an artist that I actually enjoyed for a while there. And Youngblood was horrible. I think it was 2 issues, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. I read like 6 issues of Spawn, and it's horrible as well. And I really enjoyed it. Todd McFarlane's art, but his writing is awful. I read I think 2 issues of Wildcats. Let's see what else. A lot of issues of Savage Dragon. So I knew the characters, right? So when I read Judgment Day, I was able to slip right into the world and understand it. And as it goes on and on and on, you understand what Alan Moore is doing. He's showing you this horrible, horrible world was not accidental. It was a creation of one of the characters who is so unsatisfied with his life. creates this horrible world because he has all these horrible feelings inside of him, and he wants the world to reflect what he is deep inside. It is a wonderful book. It is a commentary on what was happening on two comic books in the 90s, just like Booktopia was a commentary of what comic books were going through in the 80s. The way he does it here, it's wonderful because he introduces a whole bunch of characters. He does a lot of riffs on 60s and 70s DC and Marvel characters. Like, he introduces a Nick Fury type, but he has occult powers as opposed to like super scientific abilities, like in Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Steranko. He also introduces like a Cave Carson type. He makes these horrible characters called the New Men into kind of like a new version of the X-Men. He just takes everything that was from Marvel and DC and Image, and he just makes this whole new world. And he really creates an awesome universe, much like these comic books were being produced by Awesome Comics, there was nothing awesome about them, because if you remember, Awesome Comics produced the Rob Liefeld Fighting American. You remember those issues, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So when Alan Moore joined this universe and he wrote Judgment Day and he wrote Supreme and Youngblood, it was truly an awesome universe. And for anything that the founder of this universe, Rob Liefeld, did, what Supreme, what Alamo was able to do with these heroes, and he was saying, okay, Supreme is just a copy of Superman. I'm going to do a good copy of Superman. Youngblood is a copy of the New Teen Titans. I'm going to do a good copy of the New Teen Titans. The New Men are a copy of the X-Men. I'm going to do a good copy. That's all he did. He did not fundamentally change the characters. He just made them be what they were always meant to be, a better version or an interesting version of the characters that were copying.
Absolutely, man. And speaking of him, I guess we could finish. We'll do him, then we'll move on. You mentioned Supreme. We're gonna stay with the Image characters, I guess.
Sure.
Everyone, we talked earlier about a comic book called. Well, we talked about all of Alan Moore's Superman work for DC, and so many of you may know how much I love the Golden, Silver, and Bronze Age Superman and his history and his mythos and all that sort of thing, and how much I don't like anything really done to him after that. I don't like the reboot. We mentioned that. Well, this comic right here, again, yes, he was a Rob Liefeld character that did what Carlos was just talking about. Moore took him and actually made him good, even though he was just a bad Superman knockoff before that. And he proceeded to do a comic for many years in which I felt as if the Superman that I loved up until 1986, when John Byrne, in my opinion, just took him away. He did. I mean, whether you like it or not, he did take that Superman away. The Superman who existed in the Bronze Age, but also had a lot of that Silver Age history to himself, that wonderful, rich history, existed. He had to change his hair color and his costume and his name. But it was him. It was him. It was my Superman, the one I loved, because Alan Moore apparently loved Superman also. And he wanted to tell the kind of stories that you can tell anytime, in any era, be it from the Silver Age, be it from the Bronze Age, and put it, and this was the mid and late 90s that he did this, because a lot of people missed that Superman, and that's what this comic book is. That's what he turned this character into. And it's fantastic. It's a wonderful book for a long time. It lasted a number of years. I wish he had done it a lot longer. But yeah, this is my Superman with a different name and a different costume. Carlos?
Well, again, this is the book that I picked up just because of the strength of Alan Moore, because I read the first few issues of Supreme. Do not ask me why. They were horrible. The art was horrible. The idea was moronic. It was basically just Superman if he went crazy for no good reason. You know, just everything was bad about it. Just everything was off. And after it, after the first few issues, they asked Keith Giffen to work on the character, and he did a 3-issue miniseries called Legends of Supreme, where we find out the origin of Supreme, and it was just the best that Keith Giffen could do with such a horrible character. And it's just basically a guy who's like a priest, and he one day just goes nuts because a few kids raped a woman. So he goes nuts, he kills them, and then he gets in jail, volunteers for an experiment. He gets, shot with these rays, and boom, he becomes Supreme. Basically, it's the, I don't know, Luke Cage story. It's the Steve Rogers, Captain America story. It's just very basic, very basic.
Yeah.
And he was trying to make sense of something that was senseless, So I really can't blame Keith Giffen. And then before Alan Moore took the title, which was number 41, number 40, Jim Valentino tried to make sense of everything that had gone before. So Jim Valentino read issue 1 to 40 to 39 of Supreme, and in issue number 40, which everyone should read, he does his level best to make sense of everything that went before. It is a titanic task because it was just so awful. There were like 3 Supremes running around, one with superpowers, one with no superpowers, one who had the hammer of Thor, one that was a woman. It was just ridiculous. There's no rhyme or reason how that comic book got so convoluted in just 39 issues. It was just that bad. And number 40 shows you how bad it is. And Jim Valentino, who's a good writer, he was doing his best to leave every loose end tied so that Alan Moore could take over. And the wonderful thing about Alan Moore, he just looks at everything that went before it and he goes, there's no way anybody should make sense of this garbage. So he just starts anew, and he creates something that is beautiful. It is the story that he did was called The Story of the Year, and I do believe that these 12 issues are the story of the millennium. These are just wonderful books. It's a love letter to the Superman just you grew up with, I grew up with, everyone from the 80s and 70s and 60s grew up with. He loves everything that came before him, and he does a wonderful homage to everything. And it's just a love letter. It just adores every silly thing that came before it. All the super pets, all the adventures in the future with the Legion, every version of a super being ever, every version of a villain. It's wonderful. It is beautiful. It is amazing. It's supreme. It just, you gotta read it. It's explaining it. It's nonsensical. You just have to read it. And stuff like they have a supreme mouse, and he becomes just a wonderful character. They have a Sister Supreme who's a black woman from like the era of black exploitation. They have a
grim and gritty.
An 80s gritty Supreme, and they're all wonderful. They have a whole supremacy where every version of Supreme that was ever created lives, and it makes a lot more sense after you read it. Believe me. Just the first issue is a revelation, and from the second issue on is wonderful. And then you get to the 12th issue, and it just explains everything. It closes the door on all the flashbacks. It closes the door on everything that went before it. And then you can start with Supreme Return. Sadly, of course, Rob Liefeld wasn't paying his writers. He wasn't paying his artists. So eventually everyone quit. So just whatever wonderful thing that could come from his pen was sadly just left just dangling. Last issue that he wrote was finally published like a few years ago. It was drawn by Eric Larson. Sadly, the issue after that was written and drawn by Eric Larson. And Eric Larson, just about stupidity, said, "I never liked what Alan Moore did with Supreme. I always enjoyed the crazy Supreme. So now that I'm taking the reins, after the last issue written by Alan Moore, I'm gonna make Supreme my own." So basically, what happened? The crazy Supreme. I don't know if you know this. The crazy Supreme from the original issues breaks out of his prison in the Supremacy, kills all the versions of Supreme. He kills the version of Supreme created by Alan Moore. And then we have the Crazy Supreme. How long did this comic book last? I don't know, like 5 issues, 6 issues, because when you have a Crazy Superman, you can tell a very limited amount of stories because it just becomes repetitive. It just becomes repetitive.
Larson. Yeah. That fucking sucks.
Eric Larson, I think, was a fun guy and a good writer artist.
Anyway. I hate him.
He was a good writer artist, like in the beginning, but the more he believed his own press and how smart and brilliant and wonderful he was, I think he started becoming just impossible to deal with.
Well, I love Supreme, everyone. Anyone, if you just like that kind of wonderful throwback stuff mixed in with some amazingly clever, brilliant stuff. This, of course, here's an Alex Ross painting that I have of the Supremacy, which is basically an interdimensional world where all the different variations and versions from all over these universes of Supreme exist, and just wonderful stuff. And at the same time, as this comic was going on, Moore was also working with another company called ABC, but he's also doing this little series that is a little bit popular, and we're not going to go too far into it. America's Best Comics. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. They made some of you may know they made a film. I like the first issue enough. I like the first series, okay, maybe the second one. It really, for those who wonder about the comic book, your first couple are pretty decent, I think. I mean, wasn't my favorite thing. I think it's pretty creative. It's pretty imaginative. He is using old literary characters, teaming them up. He's not the first to do it. He's taken a lot from the old Walt Newton. He's taken a lot from Philip Jose Farmer and things like that. But it's good stuff. And it's a good comic. I think it's never been my favorite Moore work. But later it went way off the rails in the later stuff. But the first 2 series, you might want to give a shot. And now we'll let Carlos tell us a little bit about that.
Look, I read the first series and the second. I do agree that he just went off the deep end later, because that's when his wizard mode was starting to really take over his writing. The one thing I have to say about this, and I think it's my own ignorance, Moore knows the book where these characters appear backwards and forwards. So there's a lot of Easter eggs in like every panel. There's a lot of
true enough.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff within this story. Sometimes instead of actions moving the story, it's almost like Alan Moore bragging. I don't know if I'm using the correct word here, or just kind of showing you how much he knows about these characters, about this world, about the Victorian era and whatever. So instead of like, it's like 6. Both miniseries are composed of 6 issues, and I feel there's not a lot of forward movement in the issues. It's more of like him just showing off his knowledge, his encyclopedic knowledge of these characters, of this world, of everything that happens. And as you and I have talked before, there's just an amazing amount of rape in every Alan Moore book.
Yeah, he seems to be a little obsessed with rape, isn't he?
Yeah, And there's a very disturbing scene, I do believe, in the second miniseries.
Yeah,
where
you don't need
Mr.
to. You don't need to tell anybody that one if you really don't want to.
Well, I just say just Mr. Hyde has a very intimate
The
knowledge,
romance.
a very intimate knowledge of the Invisible Man, and I just said,
Oh, boy.
I could have lived my entire life without seeing this scene. So I do think
Yeah.
the idea of these comic books is very interesting. Um, I wish it would have been more of an action-oriented story as opposed to such a detailed character study of these characters and of this world. I just wish it would have been a little
It's-
more, dynamic.
I've read these, of course, and I've read many of the ones later that he did in the aughts of the 2000s, and they are. If these are, I mean, if you think that what you were talking about, that other series was bad, it's so sick. Black Dossier, and I'm going to get into it. Was too much of a rabbit hole. 1969, a couple other ones, Century, other ones he did. It's just, I'm just not into it. I mean, a lot of people, if you like, the movie that kills Sean Connery's career. Oh man, but
I know
yeah,
that
it's
the movie is silly, but I enjoy it
yeah,
as bad as it is.
it's silly, but it's not that bad. People think it's bad. I mean, it's just a
no,
goofy movie. It's just silly. Yeah.
Goofy action movie. It's good for one watch in the theater, one watch in your house, maybe, and that's pretty much it.
I like Nemo. I think Nemo's really cool in that. By the way,
it does not sustain multiple viewings. You see what I'm saying?
Most people do not like it though. It's not popular.
It's not something that I will fight anyone about. But it does not hold up to multiple viewings. But it's good for like one or two viewings. But the thing is, the one great thing in the movie is Sean Connery. He's wonderful.
Well, yeah, he's great. Quartermain is perfect. Yeah.
He's great in the movie. Even when he's interacting with that kid, Shane West. Shane West, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Who's not a good actor. Their interactions are great because it's Sean Connery doing the mentor role, just like in Indiana Jones, just like in The Untouchables. So he's good in it. It's just the movie's only okay. It's his only crime to only be okay.
Yeah, but a lot of people think it's a bad movie. I just like, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me that much. I thought it was kind of, again, saw it at the theater. It was fine. It's some okay stuff. It's fairly entertaining popcorn dribble. I mean, I've seen way worse than that. Yeah. Especially, it's just the comic. At least it's not making me want to throw up like the comic does. That's something. But now we'll go to something that when Moore went back to kind of a more like it, kind of having a lot more fun with this gentleman, Tom Strong.
The art was beautiful. The art was just amazing.
Chris Sprouse on the art. This was a fun back to fun again.
I always loved Doc Savage, and this was kind of like a fun version of Doc Savage.
Yeah, Doc Savage. Yes, maybe just blatantly Doc Savage, but that's fine. You weren't gonna be able to see an Alan Moore Doc Savage. So that's in other words, they weren't gonna put Alan Moore on a Doc Savage comic, which would have been great. So you get him to get his own version. It was great stuff. That's what comics do sometimes.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. The problem with this is I was buying way too many comic books, and something had to go. And sadly, Tom Strong was the one that had to go. But I just love the art. Just every time I would see the art, I would just want to pick it up because the art was great, and it was you could tell Moore was having a blast.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I don't know. I think maybe after maybe the first 13 or 14 or so, I kind of started to tap out a little bit. But it was a good book.
All right, it's a little late for me.
It's late. Yeah, no problem. Well, it's late for everybody.
It's 11:28, but I'm enjoying it. Good thing tomorrow. I don't have
we're
to
almost
work out
done.
Tomorrow. No, I don't have to work out tomorrow. I don't mind.
Me either.
Usually I wake up at 6 a.m. to work out at 7, so it's a whole thing.
Well, there you go.
Dude, I want to be Batman. What can I tell you?
Yeah. Well, you you are already.
I try to.
Never mind.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Next.
What?
What's next?
Well, next. Well, I'm having trouble finding the picture, but you'll just go for it with you. Next, he did a book. Well, all right, look, everyone. Again, we're getting close to the end here. I promise. Kind of back to this, what I would call the sickness, and I don't even know if Carlos read this book.
Go ahead.
So that'll be kind of the thing. There was a little comic called, and I'm finding, there we go. I got the picture. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble a little bit with the pictures here, folks. Promethea.
I read the first 3 issues. It's a very interesting book. I want to read it all, but it's definitely very weird in that wizard thing that he has. I think he explored a little bit of what he does on Promethea and on Judgment Day. Like I was talking about Judgment Day, how there's a book.
He did. Yeah.
It's the Book of Life, and that book tells the whole story of the world, and you can change it, you can modify it. And he was exploring this idea of how words have power, how words are alive, how words or books can move things around in reality. And that's pretty much what he does with Promethea. It's the power of stories. It's the power of the written word. It's the power of folklore. It's the power of stories passed down from our ancestors by voice or by written. So it starts off kind of like like a fable or like a princess story come to life, like a fairy tale come to life, and then it just goes way deep. And by the time you have Promethea and some kind of mystical cosmic being having sex in the universe, you go, okay, I think I have to read this a few more times to get the full effect. I have a friend here in Mexico. Who really likes those kind of comic books. To him, like Sandman is the ultimate greatest comic book ever. And I don't, I'm not saying that he's wrong. I think Sandman is a very good comic book. He loved Promethea. Now, I've been trying to read it. I keep getting stuck in issue number 3 because from issue number 3 on, it really gets very bizarre. So I will try to read it. But yes, it is not an easy comic book to recommend. It is not an easy comic book for everyone.
No, it is not.
It is a challenge. It is a challenge.
Look, I read it for maybe I don't know, maybe like 12, 15 issues. But I just kept, because it was more and I was hard-headed. I never really liked it that much, but I found it, again, a very fascinating premise with some excellent writing. And then after a while, it really gets disturbing. I mean, it really does. And this is some wonderful art by J.H. Williams. A lot of people love it, though. Look, a lot of people like the more hard-edged stuff. You just mentioned you have friends that like that kind of stuff. If that kind of book is for you, and it might well be for a lot of different people, it just depends what you're into.
Exactly.
You might want to check it out, because I can't recommend it from my standpoint, but that doesn't mean it does appeal to a lot of people.
Yes.
So, who knows? You all might like it a lot more. You might check it out if you're into the really crazy, hard-edged stuff, the fantasy magic stuff.
I am not in any way saying that it's a bad comic book. It is just a very tough comic book for a lot of people. It's not for the uninitiated. It is a tough read. It is a different type of comic book, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, it isn't. There was a comic that spun off from Tom Strong, and we pretty much have covered all the most of the big stuff. Called Terra Obscura. I don't know if you're familiar with this one. These were a bunch of the old Golden Age characters. These were a bunch of public domain Golden Age characters. That were oh god, what was that company? And I forget the company they were published by at the time. Oh, good lord, I forget now. But they were stories from the 40s. These were characters from the 40s. There was a character called Doc Strange, Deathman, and they got all these crazy characters that no one really remembered. You know, like Doc Strange and the Terror and Pyro Man and Captain Future. All these are characters from Smash Comics, and I forget which company they were published from. But they lapsed into public domain, and Moore put them in Tom Strong for a while, and then he crossed them over into their own series. So there's that. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that one.
I did not read Terra Obscura. I saw that it was announced, but it just never, called my attention. So
yeah, it was okay. But we kind of pretty much covered everything. Look, there's some other stuff he did later in the aughts. Everyone.
Well, there were just two things again from ABC. The one that I read from beginning to end and I loved it was Top 10.
Yeah.
And it was basically this world where superheroes are.
I forgot Top 10. Thank you. Almost forgot Top 10. Damn it! Yeah. Why'd you let me almost forget Top 10? Go ahead.
I thought you had. I didn't want to, run over.
Go for it. So, this was a good comic, folks.
A wonderful comic. It is a world where superheroes are law enforcement. They're not vigilantes. They work for the government. They're cops.
They're the cops. They're cops.
But superhero cops. So basically, it's kind of like Hill Street Blues. It's like, I don't know, CSI or whatever cop show you want, just Blue Bloods, whatever. It is a cop show, and they interact like cops. They have partners. They all have different type of, personalities and the way they interact. And they're the top 10 because they're the guys in the top, in the 10th precinct. Or the 1-0, if you will. And it's just wonderful. And like the character that's in the cover, Smacks, he gets a miniseries. And that miniseries, the miniseries is wonderful. The girl, I do believe her name is Toy Box. Her father used to be a hero. And he kind of like lost his mind. And then she becomes a new hero. It's wonderful. Brian Michael Bendis did a comic book that is similar to this. That was called Powers. I read Powers. It is does not get to be as cool as this. It's an okay book, but this is 10 times better. I think it's only 12 issues, but it's 12 wonderful issues. The Smacks miniseries, again, is wonderful. And there's a hardcover graphic novel called The 49ers, I believe.
The 49ers, which was the follow-up to Top 10.
Which is kind of like the original. Which the original heroes, the first ones that become cops in this world. Amazing. Just has my highest recommendation out of all the ABC stories. This is my favorite. And also there's I do believe it's called Tomorrow Stories. There was like an anthology book.
Yeah, it was about that. We were getting to that next. This was actually a really good book.
It's funny. It's fun stories, especially one with the character
Jack B. Quick. I loved him.
Yeah, he was funny and he was like the smallest kid in the universe, and he lived like in a farm with his like hit parents.
Yeah.
But I think it's the third issue, and it's a gray shirt story. He was kind of like a spirit kind of character.
Yeah, he was the spirit basically. Gray shirt.
I don't know if it's in the second issue or the third issue, but it's a tenement building, and it's like 4 stories, and every time you turn the page,
it was brilliant.
Every story is like a different era, and it's like 10 years between each story, and the way you read it, it just makes perfect sense. I cannot describe it.
It was a love letter to Will Eisner. It was a love letter to Will Eisner. That story.
Yes, it was
beautiful.
It was amazing. I don't remember which issue it was, but it's I think it's number 2 or number 3. And I remember just looking at the cover, just looking at the first page and seeing how it's like 4 different 4 different times. But the way you read it, you see like in the beginning, it's these 2 people like moving into the building, and they're going to be the superintendent and his son. And every like 10 years, you see how the kid is older, and the superintendent is there, and the guy who owns the building is this like mafia figure, and you just see how everything evolves in this building over time. And every floor is a different era. It's just I cannot believe a human being could write something so beautiful, so easy to understand, yet so complex. It's just like when we were talking way back in the beginning of like 3 hours ago, like at 9 when we started this. When we started talking about his time twisters, and there was a story where it involved time travel, it is kind of like the same thing. The man can think in different dimensions, in different time, and it just make everything wonderful.
Indeed. There's Smacks. That was a good book as well.
That was a good book. It turns out Smacks is kind of like a Smurf.
Yeah.
But this is Smurf. He's literally a Smurf.
Absolutely. Well, look, everyone, we covered a lot. I mean, there's no way to cover all of Alan Moore's stuff when you're trying to go quickly, and it was something of a timeline. Now, there are definitely other things out there. These are all the stuff I thought that was worth mentioning, and not necessarily, we went into not so much detail, but we did talk a good bit about much of his great work.
I think basically what we're trying to say is every book that we talked about here, and if Mike showed an image of it, if you don't have it in your collection, you can get it somehow, somewhere. It doesn't have to be the original. It can be a reprint, but you got to read it because these are wonderful comic books. They deserve to be in your collection, and it's a lot better than a lot of the crap that's coming out from DC and Marvel right now.
You said it, partner. It absolutely is. And, if you look in the description below, of course, you'll see not only the links to a lot of my friends' other fantastic and wonderful YouTube channels, you'll see some different ways to get in contact with me. If you have any questions to ask, anything we didn't cover you think you'd like to cover, any questions for Carlos, I'll relay them to him if you've got something you want to know, because you may have noticed he knows a little bit about comic books, just a little. Yeah, just to be passing knowledge. He remembers everything he's read. That's why he's here.
I do have a radio show here in Mexico. It's called Comic Mania. Sadly, of course, it's Spanish, so I don't know if a lot of you guys will like to see it. But if you could do me a favor to go to my YouTube channel, which is Comic Mania MX, as in Mexico, Comic Mania MX, subscribe. You don't have to ever watch it. Just subscribe because I really need the subscribers, please.
Yeah, go to comment. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't put the link in. I thought I'd had I forgot. No, if I'd thought about it, I would have, man. I'm sorry. But yes, please, if you could, if you're out, if you hear this, whether it's you're hearing it later on a reload or whatever, please go to Comics Mania, right?
Comic Mania.
Comic Mania, right? And subscribe. Even if you don't understand English, Spanish, man, subscribe anyway, because he's a good friend of this show and he's on here a lot with us and he's a good friend of mine. And I'd appreciate, take it as a favor if you did that, because we all need all the subs we can get out there.
Oh, yes.
And no, absolutely. I just want to thank everyone who was here with us tonight. Like I say, I hope we covered enough. I think we covered certainly the bulk of the body of his work. And any questions you have, again, in the description below, you can contact me in a number of ways. We'll be doing a couple of shows next week, just not sure yet. Charlton? I'm not sure what that question was in reference to, Smart Steve. But I want to thank you, Smart Steve, for being here, and you, the great Eric K., for being here. Jobber was here earlier. I don't know if he still is, but thanks, Jobber. Canadian Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Thank you for being here, sir. It is always appreciated. I'm honored. The great Steve Mitchell, my longtime pal. I really appreciate him being here. Moira Kitty popped in earlier. Love you. Thank you so much for popping in, my friend. And whoever was here earlier, look, I may have forgot some of the ones who were here earlier, and I do apologize, but it's tough to remember them all. It's been like 3 days now. Sorry for Charlie popped in. A good pun, Charlie. Please forgive the technical issues that we had. We got started very late, but I had a magnificent time. I think did we do our jobs well? You decide. I don't know. Are we the right guys for the job to talk about Alan Moore's work? I don't know. I think we are. Since he won't anymore.
Well,
But
we love his work. I don't
love
know
his
if we're
work.
the right guys, but we do love his work.
Right, we
At
know we
least
love his work,
most
and we
of it.
know his work. Yeah, most of it.
Yeah.
We love
Most
it.
of it.
We
Because
know it. And
some of it is really weird.
Doug Oberg, all right, my good buddy, man. I didn't even see you here earlier, my friend. Thank you for popping in, buddy. I'm so glad you're here. And anyone, if I missed you, it's just because I'm senile and old. But and sorry about the tech problems starting out. We started about a half hour late, but we got here. And again, I cannot thank you enough. I've had a great time, everyone. Go to subscribe to Carlos's channel, and I want to thank him for being here because it has been so much fun. And yeah, well, thanks a lot. Clobberin Time will return soon, probably with some open geek talk. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing the history of Star Trek comics. I'm getting ready for that one. It's going to take me some time, but we'll see if I'm up to that challenge. And if I'm not, that's okay.
And the fun thing about this is I'm really hungry and I'm really sleepy right now. Like you have no idea. But let me tell you something. There was nothing that could dissuade me from having this long conversation, because ever since we met, which was way too long ago to even remember, the one thing we've always had in common, we always fought about them, mostly, but we always had in common just the love for comic books, and just we love just sitting around just bullshitting about comic books. That's the one thing we always had in common since the day we met, and it's such a fun time to do it again and again here on your show. Sadly, we can never do it on my show because nobody will understand it, which is very sad. But I'm so glad you invite me to your show so we can talk about these kind of things. And we always have the Legion show that we've always promised. I hope we get to do one day.
We need. Yeah, we need to do a Legion show again. Maybe wait. Give me that name of your channel again. Comic
Mania MX.
Mania. Okay, I think MX. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna get a link to it right now.
Thank you very much.
Let me find you, bub. I know it's right here somewhere. Just YouTube search freaking suck, man.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I can't. Trying to find it, Eric.
Sure.
If you can find it, you put it in the private chat, and I can do it. I did a search, and I found filter. Come on, man. What channel? Let's see that works. Channel. It's a channel. There we go. I got you now. Yeah. I found you now, man. You're not getting that far off from 1,000.
Let me tell you something. It's what was it? 60, 62? That's pretty far, man. I've been.
Well, yeah, but that's way closer than me and a lot of people out here. Let's think.
Really?
I mean, dude, I got nothing right now. We're just getting started. I just moved over here.
Yeah,
Eric found it. I found it also, Eric, and I put it in there. Eric, if I knew how, you got enough people begging you to wrench for you, but I'd give you a wrench if I knew how, man.
What's this? Okay.
Yeah, there you go. But I put the link in there now. The link is in the chat, everyone. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, we had to stop doing the show for a little while because the the radio station closed down for a while thanks to COVID, and now we're open again, and I'm risking my life every Wednesday to bring a new show.
Well, good. It's worth the risk, man. Thank you, Mark with a C. I appreciate that, my friend. Thanks. You got a new sub right there. I mean, we don't have a lot of people listening. I don't have a lot of subs yet, but we all help each other. I've made so many fantastic friends here in the Fandom Menace. My good buddies, Latino Slant. You met my buddy, Paulie. Sorry about the Dodgers tonight, Paulie. You guys will pick it up. And Doug Oberg and Eric. And, man, so many fantastic people around here, man. It's really great. So, again, now, everyone, thank you so much. And thanks to Carlos. And I will be back soon.
It was my pleasure.
I guess I should play my fantastic intro out because thank you again to the great Stone Loki for this cool